Welcome to the X-Ray Podcast. I'm your host, Robert Barboza. Doing it solo today because Julio's been taking some time off, and it's been going really hectic over here in our. That's why we haven't been on doing the show as frequently as we would like. I've been joining on to a righteous perspective. It's joining with the group and all, and guess what? Some of those folks are going to join us today in the show, and I know if you're watching this pre-recorded or live, uh, these people are great people, and I've enjoyed every time I'm in their show. It's good to feel that energy of the love of Christ, and also have our talking points of you know different topics. And today, I would kind of like to start the show with giving a warning for those. Today's show is really going to be a little controversial. Um, it shouldn't be, but the rise of anti-Semitism is like um, it's on a rise, but at the same time, for very good reasons. And as Christians, like myself, and for those viewers that are not Christian, hey, just join into the show. But you're gonna hear a panel of real Christian believers, and our take about what's going on with Israel. See, the thing is, there's people that um, don't understand that we hear the Holocaust and we think the first thing we think of is what happened in World War II with Adolf Hitler, and it's terrifying. And the fact that some people don't have these conspiracies that they believe that didn't happen, well, it happened, and it's just sad that a lot of people think that it didn't happen. But back to my point is that there has been and still currently a type of Holocaust going on tonight today in 2025. And also, in the rise of the Bolsheviks in Russia. And I don't know if a lot of people know about the history of the Bolsheviks and how it started and who was their founding uh, people. And some of it, it's about 65% Jewish is what, it's in that party that started the Bolsheviks that now went to the Soviet Unions, and a tragic story of Stalin who winded up taking over. But I would like to hear today's panel, the guests, while everybody's chiming in. I'm gonna bring them out here, and so let's go for it. Let's just dig into it right now, and we got first Celise. How are you doing? Oh, I can't hear you. You might be muted.
I was muted. I'm so sorry. I'm great.
You're
Thank you
good.
for having me. I'm excited to be on tonight.
Oh man, I'm so excited that you are here. Next one that I'm bringing through, his name is Rolando. He is a character. I tell you what, he's always bringing that energy that I think every show needs. But let's go say hi to Rolando. Here we go, Rolando.
Yo, hey, what's up, Robert? Hey, Celeste,
How's it
How
how's
you?
it
going?
going?
All right.
All right, I've had an action-packed day today. I've been running around everywhere getting stuff done. Sold another job for next month,
Ooh,
so
yeah.
things are moving right along. And so I was talking to I told her about the extra income that be having coming in, and it might be getting really, really nice. And the first thing she came back with is how we could spend my money. I, you know, I don't want to go on some long diatribe here, but I'll tell you what, my mom will put you in the poorhouse if she got access to your account. She will put you in the poorhouse just going to Ross and Marshalls and Dee. Okay, between
Mm.
those three stores, all right, she will discount, bargain shop you into financial oblivion.
Man.
Just
Hey,
want to throw
man,
that out
that's
there.
but hey, that's a good blessing that you got a contract, man. That is awesome. And especially around this time where, construction seems to ramp down because everybody, you know, taking vacations and
That
whatnot. That's always a good thing, you know. Next one that we're bringing is Damari. Here we go.
Hey, hey Celeste, hey
All
Rolando,
right.
hey
Hey.
Roberto.
How's it going?
gangs all
Pretty
here.
good. How's everybody doing?
Really good. So let's start with
Good.
Celise. Where are you from, Celise? Let our viewers know where is Celise from?
I'm originally from Providence, Rhode Island, so
Okay.
I'm a New England girl,
Okay.
but I am currently living in Washington D.C.
Ooh,
Oh,
Washington D.C. Let me ask you this.
Oh,
So in Washington D.C., is it safer now, or is that not true? Or because we see in the news that it was dangerous and Donald Trump cleaned up the streets. So can you give us a little take of what that looks like now?
Yeah, so it is much quieter. It really is. It is much quieter here since the National Guard and sort of the other federal law enforcement came. That is true. It is also true that crime was going down.
Okay.
So we had a significant reduction in crime. What we really didn't have was a reduction in juvenile crime. And so when the National Guard came, it seems that is also um, coming down now.
Awesome.
that's
Awesome.
good.
What about you, Rolando? Where are you from?
well, originally I was born in Rio Piedra, Puerto Rico, which
Oh,
is
okay.
basically in San Juan. And I grew up in Jersey, lived in New York a little bit, and then grew up in Jersey. And then came down to Florida when I was about 15, going on 16, and been in Florida kind of ever since. So, and then I've had a little bit of stint in Carolina and lived in Ohio for a little bit as well. So,
So, what do you think of Jersey? Do you remember too much of it, or do you ever go visit there every now and then?
no, I still got family members all through and through Jersey. The Pennsylvania area, they kind of spread out a little bit, but growing up in Jersey in the 80s and the 90s was really, really unique. I'll put it that way. And, Pops was a military vet and
Oh
mom
wow.
was a stay at home wife. So, the growing up was interesting. Went to school and my mom my mom was always kind of funny because we go to school during the day and then as soon as we got home from school, my mom doesn't know English even to this day. So if you talk to
Okay.
her, if you ain't talking Spanish, you ain't talking to her.
And is
Okay.
that Puerto Rican
So
Spanish, huh?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So it was easier for her to teach us Spanish than it was for her to learn English. So after
Yeah,
Hmm.
school,
that's
she would sit us down and basically teach us Spanish. So, we're all able to communicate. But still to this day, if you ain't talking Spanish, you ain't talking.
man, that's crazy. And my family is from Mexico, so like, uh, Julio, which he was out today, but man, if you had met Julio, he's Puerto Rican, and when we talk Spanish, we have another channel that we called Revolution to the Right, but in Spanish is
Okay.
Revolución de Derecha. And I
So,
try to get on there, but man, when he talks Spanish, he talks that Puerto Rican Spanish, and then I'm like, I don't know.
yeah,
Yeah, I
you,
guess,
you, you know,
Oh
it's
wow.
different.
Robert, Robert, it's kind of funny you said that because a little while back, I took a trip to California to go pick up a boat. And while I was in California, I was in San Diego. I said, you know what? I never been to Mexico. Let me jump over right quick and go to Mexico. So I went to Tijuana for the night, all right, by myself. All right, because I fear nothing but God in this life. So if I'm gonna die, does it really matter if I die by a Mexican bullet or American bullet? Yeah, it's still a bullet. So, so I go into Tijuana, right, and I get a taxi cab into where all the tourists go and whatnot. And as soon as I spoke Spanish to the guy, Robert, he knew immediately. He's like, "You're not Mexican. Where you from?" And I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
know.
yeah, Puerto Rico. And he's like, and automatically, dude, he jumps right into the boxing. Because Puerto Rico and
Yeah, Puerto
Mexico got
Rico,
this
no, no,
little
yeah,
kind of
Mhm.
no.
rivalry back and forth with boxes and stuff like that. So it was cool.
That's awesome. Is it Dion?
Dion, yes.
Yeah. So tell us about yourself. Where are you from?
Well, I was born and raised right here in St. Louis. I spent part of my childhood in Michigan, in Flint, as a matter of fact.
Okay.
So from like, what was it, elementary school to like right before middle school, my parents and my two brothers, we were living in Michigan. It was mighty cold up in there.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Man.
the snow stayed on the ground until into the month of May.
Mhm.
So that man,
So
that's crazy. It's to
yeah,
May.
Mhm.
yeah. So
The
we were,
shoveling of snow.
oh my
Mm.
gosh, yes. And as kids, we were all into sledding and, well, our little makeshift sleds down at the neighborhood park. So, but it was a lot of fun, and I'm glad to have been there when I was young compared to now, because these bones can't handle all that cold and snow.
Hey
And
Dion, can I ask you a question? Can I ask
Sure.
you a question right quick?
Yeah, yeah.
How'd you guys make those homemade sleds? I just want to know how they made them up in Michigan.
I don't know what hunk of plastic. Well, I guess my parents must have bought like the little kitty little sleds. I remember them being these little orange. They look like little orange flat boats or something. Um, but other kids would take like a hunk of tile, and we would just go to the top of the hill at the park and just slide on down. We used
Okay,
whatever would work.
okay, I was just asking because in Jersey we would rip the side of a file cabinet. We would take the side of
Oh,
a old school filing cabinet
Yeah,
and we
Okay.
that's
would rip
nice
that
and
off and it's
slickery.
one long sheet and we would just bend the front and
Yeah.
poke some holes and put a little rope in there.
Oh, that's a
Man,
good
that's
idea.
crazy.
sense.
That's
Mhm.
crazy.
Mhm.
It's isn't it like sheet metal?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow.
That's
We weren't
crazy.
quite that resourceful.
Hey, but it's crazy because ignorance is bliss because when now that we know, oh, sheet metal, you can cut a body part with that, and so maybe that's what makes us pansies nowadays, right? All this safety protocol that we
Yes,
can't go,
yes.
and even as parents, we're like, no, no, don't do that. But speaking about ignorance, now I'm gonna get into the topic of the show.
Oh,
All
So
right.
it's gonna be it might be uncomfortable, but okay. First off, we're all Christian here, or we at least believe that Jesus Christ was our Lord and Savior, and we know that He was a Hebrew, right, an Israelite. And this today I wanted to show a clip that talks about um, with Candace Owens and everything that's going on with her beef between this guy named he's a rabbi. I don't know if y'all know him, Rabbi Shmuley, and
All
Rabbi
right.
Shmuley, he was around like all these influential, like P Diddy, Michael Jackson, and it's just like there's this conspiracy, right? That the Jewish community, the ones that are now Jewish community, um, they control these behind the scenes Hollywood, and I in this channel we talked about how public servants, I think we went down the list, we found out that 65%. Now I'm not against this or for it, but it is alarming. 65% of our public servants have dual citizen to Israel and United States. So I mean,
interesting.
yeah, so my opinion, and I'm gonna ask y'all, what do y'all think? Now, take the word Israel out, but just imagine now think of the worst country that you can think of, like, and I'm just gonna use Russia, right? Just because everybody is afraid of Russia, right? So let's say half of the people that are running our public service, like congressmen, senators, mayors, your local people, 65% of them were all dual citizens from Russia. You think they're kind of making laws in our best interests? I mean, what do you think, Rolando?
Absolutely.
Well, I mean, when it comes to stuff like this, and people come up with these conspiracy theories and that kind of thing, I don't really buy much into it. Um, just to give you an example, I mean, it's like saying black people control the NBA just because they're good at basketball. You know, Jewish people happen to be good with money, and money tends to
Gives them
find its
influence.
way in all aspects of our life. So if you're good at managing money or you're good at making money, then you're naturally going to have a lot of influence. Influence goes with the money. So
Hmm.
I don't really buy too much into the conspiracy theories of that kind of thing. Um, I just can't. I always find it hard to subscribe to that kind of stuff.
Exactly,
Now,
because
I'm not.
you don't know the facts. You know.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not denying its existence or anything like that. But I just don't know enough about it to say that it's a conspiracy or not. You know, I've grown up around a lot of Jewish people, just growing up in that tri-state area of Jersey and New York and that kind of thing. And from what I see, nothing ever led me to believe that these people are trying to take over the world, kind of thing. You know, they just
Yeah.
they're just a tight knit community, you know, who just happens to ingratiate themselves a lot with the United States. Now, does that have to do with the history from World War II? Because in essence, we were their savior. I really hate to use that word, but we did save them from the annihilation that was going on over in Germany and all these other European countries. So
Correct.
maybe that trauma just, you know, brought them closer to us, you know, and they started to ingratiate themselves in our culture, you know, in our country and that kind of thing, not for control, but more for safety
Correct.
than anything. You know, maybe that point in time of World War II just let them know that, hey, your safety is not guaranteed, you know, in this particular part of the world, be it Israel or you know, the UK or anywhere else.
Yeah.
Let's ingratiate ourselves more with the West, who came to our rescue
Yeah.
and saved us from annihilation. And I think they just assimilated since then. And naturally, you know, if they're good with money, they're gonna make money. With money comes jealousy, so people see them making money,
Yeah. Correct.
and it
Mhm.
you know, spills into jealousy, and from jealousy spins off conspiracies and everything else that comes with that. So I don't really subscribe to that. You know, I just think some communities are just better off because of the way they do things in their culture. You know, the same with Asians and everybody else. Cultures who tend to really invest in family and keep family close and that kind of thing tend to
Yep.
do better financially.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
You know, so if you start going out and branching out to some of these other communities, you know, maybe poor white people, black people, some Spanish people, you know, where the family is not as close and it's more not like a pack of wolves, but the lone wolf.
Okay.
You know, you know, the pack of wolf always survive. The lone wolf always dies.
That's true. So, Celise, with that being said, the same question goes to you. How would you feel, knowing that 65% of the public servants have a dual citizenship to any country,
So I'm
or
not
say,
sure.
and it's just one specific one.
I'm not sure that that fact alone brings me to the idea that there's a coordinated behind the scenes effort to have an agenda in one way or the other. But I do think it is fair to ask that question and to ask about whether or not there are conflicts. I know if you were thinking about the position of president, I'm not sure an American president should have any other citizenship other than the United States.
Correct.
Maybe you even want to extend that. I'm not sure that you can or you would to Senate and Congress. I think it's a fair and reasonable question to think about, but simply because 65% of Jewish people, have public service as their, as were elected into public service. I don't know that that means, oh, that's a guarantee, that's proof that now there's an orchestrated clandestine activity to, to do this or to do that. That fact alone doesn't suggest that to me. But I don't think it's wrong, and I don't think Americans should be criticized if they want to make sure that their public leaders, whether they're Jewish or anything else, foreign born, or any reason, anarchist or socialist, or if you have allegiances that may put you in conflict with the majority of what the American people want, then that's a fair question that the American people can ask you respectfully, but we have a right to ask.
Yes, I agree with that. Definitely. See, and that's my whole point. I'm not for either. Like, I don't think there's a big boogeyman the way, everyone's saying it. But these clips, that's what I'm want to touch on, because they make it sound very alarming, and some people fall for it. And like Rolando says, we can't subscribe to that if we don't know all the facts. But at the same time, it's not wrong that we're bringing it up and asking questions to see, hey, because like I believe that Palestine should exist its own country, and so is Israel its own country. I mean, the fact that I say that I agree that Palestine should exist doesn't mean I'm anti-Semite. And if you know what I mean, like I think Israel has the right to defend itself, just like the Palestinians. Now, there's people that conflate the Palestinians with Hamas, the group Hamas. Then I can't subscribe to that. But Dion, I want to get with you. What are your thoughts of that? Of having about 60% of your representatives being dual citizen to one certain country. It's not like it's some 20% are this country, 20%. No, it's like 65% of them have dual citizenship to one country. You know, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I have to admit, I was very surprised by that statistic. I did not know that. Um, and so, it makes me kind of wonder, but not too much. 65% though, that's a big chunk.
This is a
Um,
high chunk, yeah.
Now, definitely, if you were to say that that was a certain other group, I'd be very concerned. But because America has been described as being Judeo-Christian. I mean, I
Mhm.
see them as one of our allies, probably one of our only allies, or I don't know, maybe there's others over in the Middle East. And so I don't see it as threatening like I would if it was some other group, like if it was 65%, Marxist or democratic socialist
Yeah,
or certain other religions that are on that takeover kind of, we
yeah.
want to rule the world kind of, I would be extremely concerned. Um, and I'm already very concerned about that because I mean it may not be happening at the 60-65% level,
But
but
it's
it's
getting there. It's
constantly going
increasing.
up. Yes.
Yeah, it's
'Cause-
increasing for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we all know what you're talking about. We also dived into that, especially here in Texas. It's growing in an alarming amount. Like it's not that they're converting. That see, they say that Islam is converting people. It's not that. We also digged into that. It's they're migrating in here,
Mhm.
and it's not that they're new converts like the way they would have you.
Right.
But let's watch this.
Okay.
Let's watch this show. Let's watch this little clip here because it's like 2 minutes and 45 uh, seconds long. Here we go. Just let me see what this. Wait, what's going on here? Playing. My computer's moving. Go.
It
Technology. Come on. There we go. Hold on. Yeah, there. It's this one. And share. There we go. Finally, it worked. Okay, here we go.
Years in school learning about the Jewish Holocaust. So imagine my surprise once I got out of school And I learned that there was an even bigger Christian Holocaust going on in Russia at the same time that we were locking arms with Stalin. The Bolsheviks of Russia, with an 84% Jewish leadership, killed thousands of priests, burned down 40,000 churches, and over 60 million Christians. We supposedly live in a Christian nation, but we aren't even taught Christian history in school. We're heavily propagandized that the mustache man was the greatest mass murderer, and they spend years drilling it into our heads about the Jewish Holocaust. And we don't learn about the Bolshevik Revolution because they were mostly Jewish. So it conflicts with this narrative of the Jews always being persecuted in every single circumstance. Even from a young age, they are pushing this bizarre relationship that we have with Israel. Anytime anything happens in Israel, there's wall-to-wall coverage in the American mass media, but the media is silent about the Christians being killed in Armenia and Nigeria right now. And guess who's supplying the arms for Christians to be killed in Armenia? Israel. And who does Israel get their money and their weapons from? The American taxpayers. The media demands that American Christians condemn October 7th and talk about Israel. But would they ever ask a Jewish person about the Christians being persecuted all around the world? The answer is no. So why are Christians denied the right to speak or learn about their history in school, but they're required to constantly speak and condemn anything that happens to the state of Israel? If we live in a Christian nation, why does our government not stand up for the millions of Christians being persecuted all around the world, but instead pass ridiculous laws against anti-Semitic speech? Listen, when you learn that the Bolshevik Revolution was actually a Jewish revolution to take out their enemies, which are the Christians, and it was funded by Jewish financial interests in Europe and the United States, well, let me just say that history and current events start to make a lot more sense. If you're interested in learning more about this topic and many others, then just comment books below, and I'll send you my curated.
So that is the clip. And I went ahead and, try to fact check her and make sure to see, if some of it was right. And she did say 80%, which it wasn't 80%. A lot of them were, just regular Russians that joined the Bolshevik Revolution. But the leaders, yeah, they kind of were. And I also dug in because I didn't know this. And how I got into this was because I got into a debate with a guy named Kawa Malay, and he kind of opened my mind to this. And he basically, I didn't know this, but remember, um after King Solomon, and I hate to be this is kind of boring, but King Solomon had a son named Jehoiachin, and then Jehoiachin had a son named Jehoiakim. Well, Jehoiachin did something so bad that God separated the country Israel into two kingdoms. It was Israel and Judah, right? So when the Persians took over, and then the Romans took over, and then the Romans, had the fall of Rome, and then the Babylonians came, and the Jews were basically pushed out of there. A lot of them went to Russia, and I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I thought a lot of them went to Europe. Apparently, I was one of, like her, that wasn't taught too much of the Bolsheviks revolution, and I kind of now understand why they don't teach us that. I don't know. I didn't know it was because of what she's saying. I just thought because a lot of these professors want to push communism, and if you learn about the Bolsheviks, man, I invite everybody to look into that, because it sounds just like our modern leftists, like word for word. The way they dress, the way they look, the way the talking points are similar, and we're talking about early 1900s, and they sound just like the leftists today, which is so scary. But when I found this out, yeah, it was somewhere around the 40% of the Jewish in the Bolsheviks. But yes, they did kill. The truth is they they killed a lot of Christians, like a lot. And then when Stalin got in power, he killed all the people that got him in power because he was afraid that they were gonna take his power. So he killed them. He killed the teachers, the professors, he killed everybody. And yeah, it was I think in the millions. So it was like it's worse than what we were taught from Hitler, basically, which one is too many anyways, like, but it's just crazy to me. So what are your thoughts on that, Celise? Like, what do you think? Is she promoting propaganda, or is it something to just question? What's your thoughts?
So I think this. I think first of all, the question about why the Christian Holocaust in Armenia and Nigeria is not really discussed by the mass media is because this is the dangers of intersectionality. The fact of the matter is Christians are seen in the West and specifically in this country as the oppressors because Christianity is aligned with whiteness. And so anything that is aligned with whiteness is generally considered bad. And so what happens to them, particularly if it happens to people who are higher on the intersectional scale, which white being at the lowest, is not going to grab the attention of the media and is not really going to be, unless they're forced into a national conversation about that. And as far as even the conversation about the Bolsheviks, the Bolsheviks were as many places were in the 19th century. There's a really good book on this called Death by Government. And they were a people, obviously, who were trying to have a socialist communist revolution. Now, what becomes dangerous and what can, I'm not saying it is, but can become propaganda is when we try to attach actions with race and ethnicities. So it's what's
Yeah.
important is that there were a group of people that wanted to have a communist revolution in Russia. The fact that many in that group were Jewish may not be significant, but we are highlighting that as if to say the Jews were the ones that were doing this. The Jews were the ones that were doing this. It's the same thing with part of the reason that we can't discuss the Christian genocide in Nigeria because they do not know how to talk about it because they cannot detach the racial qualification between the victim and the oppressed because they're both the same race. It is Nigerian um, Muslims that are killing Nigerian Christians, which means Black Muslims are killing Black Christians, and they don't know how to have that conversation because we have become so devoid of reason in this country. We do not
Yeah.
know how to understand and process in action outside of the race of the people who are committing the action. So I think that there is a danger in that, and we have to be very vigilant. That doesn't mean that it's insignificant. But just because a bunch of Jews are doing something, or a bunch of Blacks are doing something, or a bunch of women are doing something may not be the most significant part of that story. It could be, but it may not be. And
Yeah.
I'm trying to be
Yeah.
very even-handed and reasonable on this. And
And yeah, it sounds so good. Yeah, I agree with you.
I'm just not. I think you just have to be careful because it puts us in the same characteristic as the intersectionalists who never know how to understand anything because first they have to figure out who did it. It's like if there's a crime, they can't say if you on the nightly news, oh, there was a horrible murder on Third Street, and people say, oh, I hope it wasn't Black. First, let's deal with the actual
Yeah.
murder. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like, learn
Yeah.
how to understand an event beyond the race and the color and the sex or even the sexual preference, whatever it's going to be, all these side attributes that they act on, that they put in the forefront. I'm not saying that they're irrelevant. Facts will be revealed that will say whether or not they're relevant, but because that's what you see first does not always mean that that's the most important thing.
Yeah. Wow. Well said. I like that. Dion, what's your thought on that video? She promoting propaganda? Do you think it's something that we should? And like Celise says, maybe we're hyper focused on the cement. We're not really worrying about the actual crime, and it's just we need to worry about the crime, not so much of who what color that person was, what race, or what ethnicity or religion. But what's your thoughts? Oh, you're muted.
My bad. Sorry.
That's good.
What Celeste just said, man, that was so much wisdom. And I myself need to make sure that I take those very same steps, not to jump on the bandwagon, um, doing what other people do. But I have to say this. I mean, growing up in a Christian household, I mean, I heard it from my dad for years. I tell people that I'm a PK. My dad was a preacher. And I don't say that to brag or anything like that, because he was just a regular guy. But man, he knew that word. Um, and I grew up in a household where, you would hear it said that the passages in the Bible that talk about, God saying that to those, he was speaking to Israel and about Israel, and saying to those that bless you, I will bless them. Those that
Mhm.
curse you, I will curse them. So I'm always careful. I know that the Jewish people are not perfect, or anything like that. It's not that I believe they got angels' wings sprouting out of their backs or anything. But whenever I hear someone speak like the young lady did in that video, I'm always cautious, especially in this day and age. Um, and just as I thought, like you said, you vetted what she was saying, and she used, the percentage 84%
Yeah, it was
of
pretty
what the
high. Yeah.
Bolsheviks were Jewish. And you said it turned out to be more like, 40-ish or whatever. Um, yeah, the first thing I start doing is I can't take it at face value when people say things like that nowadays. I mean, you can't, unless you know who these people are, and even when you do, I mean, you sure can't
Yep.
take it at face value. You'll get in all
Yep.
kinds of trouble. But there is a mindset and a movement sweeping this nation to try to get people to be against Israel and against Jewish people, and that's just a bandwagon that I know better not to jump on it.
Joined. Yeah.
I'm like, if they're doing something wrong, my mindset is like, God's gonna deal with them. He's gonna deal with his people. I don't have to get out here and do it. He's gonna deal with them. Let me just step back, like, in my mind is what I always say. But yeah, it's when people start talking like that young lady, my first thought is to let me go check and see what this person is talking about, and see if it makes any sense. Now, it is true that, the way the Bible talks about Israel, the time will come, and the Bible talks about this, that every nation is going to be against um, Israel. Everybody's going to turn on them. Now, that doesn't mean every single person in every nation, but like the leadership of every nation, even America, eventually one day, just going to step back and go, you know what? I'm done. It's got to get to that point, because biblical prophecy says it's going to come to that point. But I'm not trying to get my hands dirty. I'll just put it like that. Um, and anybody who starts on that path and starts talking that way, I'm really cautious about what they're saying, if I pay any attention to it at all. A lot of times I block it out, but it's hard to nowadays because there's so much of that kind of talk, that kind of discussion. So Yeah, my first thought, I was like, well, number one, who is this chick?
Exactly.
You
Yeah.
know, who
But
are
Dion,
you?
the Dion, but the thing is, there is certain things that are questionable, right? Like,
Mhm,
when I got into this, um, and I've been digging into this for a while now, and I'm still
mhm,
currently digging into it. But I was also taught that the church, there's a church, and God has a special place for the Jews. But I'm
mhm,
finding out now, as I dig into scripture,
mhm,
that's not the case no more. And I know I get a lot of flack when I bring this up, but you got Galatians, um, which I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about, chapter 3, verse 28-29, where it says, there is neither, and this is Paul speaking, there is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye all are in Christ Jesus. And if you're in Christ, then you're Abraham's descendants, right? And basically, we are the new Jerusalem, the new Jewish, I guess you could want to call it, but we're
mhm.
Christians. And hold on, I know I'm gonna lose probably your where I'm going, but the thing is, what I'm trying to say is that when the Antichrist comes,
Mhm.
the Jewish are going to say that that's their Mashiach, the Messiah, right? And you're telling me, what happens if you get the mark of the beast? The Bible says that's it, right?
Yep.
Do we agree on that?
Mhm,
So if
mhm.
these guys think that this is the Mashiach, they're going to get the mark. You get what I'm saying? Because they're going to be believing that that's their Messiah. And
Mhm.
you're not going to buy or sell if you don't have the mark of the beast. Now, we don't know
True.
what that mark is right now, right? We currently don't know. It could be anything. My whole point is this: whether you're a Jew, whether you're is Jehovah Witness, Catholic, if you put your life into Jesus Christ and you
Mhm,
proclaim him
mhm,
as your Lord and Savior, you are saved. You are part
mhm,
of the
mhm.
family of Christ. And that's what I'm trying to say, is that that first covenant that God made was broken under Jehoiachin. And God, even that's when God was, what you see Jesus even further, even further past in the past of the Bible. But from Jehoiachin, that's when you started getting these prophets even more prophesizing about Yeshua. They were telling, a new king's gonna arise, and they thought physically a new king was gonna come, but God was talking about Yeshua. All right. And I know what I'm saying right now is very controversial. And a lot of people will be like, well, no, no, this and that. And then I come and ask, well, do you know where the Star of David comes from? And a lot of people give me no answer, which no one knows where the Star of David came
Yeah,
from.
it's not necessarily biblical.
Yeah, it is actually, which I'm digging into that, but
Mhm,
I haven't verified if this is true or not yet, but I'm just going to share it anyways. But there's a hint that it might be the star of Molech. And I don't know if you know who Molech was,
Mhm.
but
Mo,
he's one of the, yeah, go ahead.
one of
Moab, yeah,
I don't one of Molech and who was it? Amash. I
Baal,
mean that they were
yeah,
um well, they were false gods, of course.
from the Canaanites, the
Yes,
Amorites.
It was a god of
right, right, right.
sacrifice.
But here's the thing that I wanted to really to recommend as you're going on this journey and you're looking into this. But there's a couple of things that we all need to know, and if you've probably heard this already, but we got to be careful of replacement theology. And that's the understanding that somehow the church has replaced who Israel is in God's eyes. That's something that is not scriptural. There are things that God is going to do through Israel, and what we have to remember is that God has purposefully almost like put a blinder just in general on the eyes of the people of Israel while the Gentiles are coming in. The Gentiles are this everybody else who's not
Yep.
Jewish. So
Correct.
while he is allowing us to be grafted in and to become followers of Christ, he has them right now in a mode of they can't see it. Okay. So but that's not to be a sweeping generalization, because there's something that's called messianic Jews. These are Jewish
Yep.
people
Yep.
that
Which
believe
are
that Jesus
Christians.
Christ, right?
Which is
Basically, they're
Christians.
Christians, right? Right. So we have to be careful about getting on that bandwagon, because God, there are passages in the Bible as well where God
Well, and
God doesn't change his mind, and
well, no, and that's the thing. See, it sounds like it's God's changed his mind, but it wasn't God that changed his mind. It was the people that changed the covenant.
but
It was
see
the
God,
people that failed. That's why. What was the whole point of the mantle when Jesus Christ died and the mantle was ripped, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and the whole point of that was because they broke the covenant. They broke it.
But see,
They started.
the Bible says, God says that I am married to the backslider. So even though humanity might fall and not keep our part of the bargain, or whatever, however you want to phrase it, God is committed to the people of Israel regardless of their failings, because part of why they don't see Jesus as Messiah is because he is allowing that to be, so that, like I said, so that the Gentiles can come in. But he says he's married to the backslider. um and that means people that have fallen away. Backsliders are people that have fallen
Yeah,
away.
exactly. Yep.
So he does for us what we can't even do for ourselves. Once he sets his love on us, he's in there and he's committed. Now he might whoop our behinds,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and the scripture even talks about that. There are instances within the Bible that God, in dealing with his own people, he will even use a wicked nation
Yeah.
to whoop his own people back
Yep.
into alignment. So, he's
Yep.
the provident one, he's sovereign, you know, that's up to him to decide. But we also have, and what's going to happen in the end time, like I've been looking a little bit into, and see, with you asking this question, you're going to make me go get my lessons. See, I need to do some studying. It's showing some areas where I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to do some studying. But I know that like during the time of the Great Tribulation, miraculously, God is going to send two men. They will be
Yep.
supernatural men, the two
Yep.
witnesses.
Yep.
And they are going to, for 3.5 years, preach the straight up gospel to the people of Israel.
And
So for
and
3.5 years, and they're going to be there are those of them that are going to be coming in, and there are those Jewish people that are going to reject it. But this is a system God already has in place for them. So all of that stuff is playing in the background as we go and we delve into we do these deep dives and we're studying this stuff. We have to always have the prophetic revelation of the Bible playing in the background, or else we're going to go down the wrong bunny trail, basically.
yep. Rolando, what do you think? What's
Well,
your thoughts?
well, when I hear these people talk about genocide, I notice that they always seem to pick the same one.
Yeah,
You know,
that's
it's
true.
just when look, I looked up here. You have the Holocaust. You have King Leopold's genocide. You had the genocide of indigenous people in the Americas. You had uh, Holodomor, Soviet famine, the Cambodian genocide, and the Rwandan genocide. You know, and if you ever take notice, none of these people ever talk about Africa's genocide, Africa's Saharan genocide that go on. Millions of people die. Uh, women, essayed and everything else. Nobody ever seems to talk about that. It's not the popular topic. You know, the popular topic always seems to be the Jewish people. And I get it. That's always going to be the headline grabber. You know, where you could strewn across and sell newspapers and get views and everything else as soon as you bring up anything having to do with Jewish people. But genocide is nothing new to this world. It's
Yeah.
been going on for
Yeah.
hundreds, probably into the thousands of years, and it's probably going to go on long after we leave. What really gets me is where they focus the outrage. That's always interesting to me because to me, that tells me where's the interest,
Yeah.
and the interest is nowhere near Africa. And, if you don't care about genocides all over the world, you just care about a particular one, then it really starts to show me a lot about your character and things like that. And there's definitely a racial component. I believe a racial bias there because it's like Black Lives Matter. Of course, Black Lives Matter, but in the grand scheme of things, all lives matter.
Yep.
And that's the same scenario here. I understand Jewish life matters just like anybody else's life matters. You know, so that's kind of how I feel when we get into the topic of genocide. That's why I had to give Trump so much kudos with what he did in the Congo.
Yeah. For
And you
real.
notice, and this war has been going on for over 30 years, millions
Mhm.
of people dead. And when he brings it up, you see how quick. Just look at when he brings it up in the Oval Office or on Air Force One or anywhere else. Notice how quick the reporters don't ask no questions.
Yeah.
I
They're quick
know.
to just
That's
move
crazy.
on to the next topic. You know, if it's any country where there's brown people, the Cambodia, Thailand, the Congo, uh, Azerbaijan,
Mhm.
Yeah. They're
and
silent.
Armenia. As soon as he brings it up, they skip past all of that. What do you think about the Jews? Why? Because that's the headline getter, you know. And then I wanted to disagree with you, Robert, on something you said in the last segment. I don't agree in the two-party state for Israel.
Okay.
Me personally, um, I'm a believer of God. I'm a follower of Jesus Christ. So I'm very pro-Israel, you know. Those are God's people. Any way you want to look at it, the Bible tells us so, you know. And the only story that I need to convince anyone is when the Assyrian army was at the gate, and God sends his angel down and literally annihilates the whole Assyrian army.
Yep. Yeah. I remember that.
Okay, so that tells me that that's his favorite people. And a two-party state ain't gonna work because you have two people here who have extremely bad blood that goes back thousands and thousands of years. Okay. So just imagine this scenario. Somebody who hates you has been living in your house for the last 3,000 freaking years. Y'all fighting, y'all, doing stuff to each other.
Correct.
Okay. And then I come in, I said, look, man, I'm tired of you guys fighting. Check it out. I'm gonna build you a house right next door. You just go live next door. You think the fight is gonna stop?
No.
No.
Yeah. No. Mm-mm.
They're gonna start launching bombs over the fence at each other. You know,
That's true.
like
Yeah. No.
like
For real. Yeah.
like the Palestinians barbecuing, the Jewish people gonna throw a bomb over the fence. Jewish people barbecuing, the Palestinians gonna throw a bomb over the fence. And that's really, what it's gonna be. So what I think it needs to happen in a scenario like that is that the Muslim countries around Israel need to soak up the Palestinian population, okay, and just let Israel just be all Israel state. But
Which,
the biggest problem with these countries surrounding Israel, okay, even though they're richer than King Croesus and everything else, okay, they know that the Palestinians are not a population that they want because there's so many
yeah,
extremists in that
yeah,
group. Not saying
that's true. I'd
everybody,
give you that. Yep.
but they don't want to open their borders up to extreme, Islamic, because if you look at their countries, Qatar, Abu Dhabi, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and all these places, they're very successful, okay, and they have zero crime. And if you think they want to open up their borders to a bunch of Palestinians who don't know nothing but to hate Jews and fight and carry on and jihadism and everything else, no, they don't. I wouldn't want to open my door to that either.
Yeah, that's true. And you know where they're at right now in Gaza, that used to be Philistine. I can't say it. Where the Philistines
Philistine. I
live.
was going to say
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah,
Philistine.
yeah. Philistine. Yeah, that's where they have them there, which is a little strip, man, compared to where Israel is. But yeah, no, I agree, man. They're always going to be bitter, you know, and they're fighting that. Oh, I'm the descendant of Abraham as well, but you're the family of Ishmael, so you're a bastard child. You're not
Yeah, they're not
from,
they're not the
that's
West. Here,
yep,
if you're Muslim, I'm Christian, this guy's Buddhist, this guy believes in Hinduism, whatever the case may be, we can all live on the same street and it's fine. But that's not the case over there.
correct.
So I believe the only real answer there is just to move these people out. But the biggest problem is getting these other Muslim countries to accept them because they won't.
Yeah,
And that tells you a lot in just that fact alone that the other
Wow.
countries just don't want them.
That's an excellent point.
yeah,
Yeah,
Because they're all Muslim. You would think that's a
Right.
natural answer.
yeah.
I'm
You would
sorry,
think they would
Celeste, but you
accept
Yeah,
them.
think that's a
Yeah,
yeah,
natural answer. If you have displaced Muslims, why don't you just put them in a Muslim country where basically, they all worship and believe in the same thing. It shouldn't be no
yeah.
strife, shouldn't be no problems, but they just won't do it.
mm, mm,
Very
mm.
interesting.
I think that part of the problem with the foreign policy that we've had over the past 50 years is that it's reflective of the liberal order. And the liberal order basically never takes into account human nature. It absolutely denies human nature, and in my opinion, in that denying God, because it actually says that man can solve all of this. And if you look at the whole history of humanity, the entire history of humanity has been about conquest.
Yep,
It's absolutely been about conquest. So in every conflict, what we are dealing with now is the result of somebody who won the conquest there. If you are alive now, you are probably on the winning side of
yep,
some conquest. And part of the issue with the two-state proposition, which Trump has, it basically deviated from all of the 50-year orthodoxy on how to deal with the Middle East by the Abraham Accords and pursuing a different strategy than the two-state solution, because that's all everybody said we could have. Was it ignores, similar to what Rolando was saying, it ignores human nature, which is, in a situation, the human beings are going to conquer. Someone is going to conquer someone, and someone is going to win. And part of the issue with this situation is that just has, in 2,000 years, it hasn't happened. They just keep fighting, but nobody has won. So
yeah.
until there's a resolution, and I'm not wishing this on anybody, but I'm simply saying that's
It's
how
human nature.
right. That's how humanity has marched forward. It has marched forward because somebody conquered somebody else. They took their land, they took their territory, and every single body who has done it, everybody who is here now was on some winning team at some point, or else you wouldn't be alive now. You wouldn't. The losers are dead.
Yeah. And now moving on to the next segment, because you guys brought this up perfectly, but the left seem to not have those that deny the human instinct, right? So it's like one of the things that they're denying is the fact that you know I see you live your beautiful background, right? You love your house, and sometimes you want to have a little property to rent for, some of us likes to think ahead and think, what, I'm going to retire, so I'm going to have this house that I bought and I'm going to rent it out. Then you got people in New York that voted in this mayor, and I'm going now from that anti-Semitic to now to the socialist. Look, at this is probably the last video for tonight, but I want you guys to watch this. And this is I've always wondered what was his plan, Mandani, to get free rent, right? Because some of the landlords are corporate owned, and some of them are people that just inherited from their grandparents or whatever, and they rent out these units. But then it's like, okay, so if you're gonna subsidize the government, are you paying it to personal, because to people? And I don't think so. And this young lady tells us, I don't know who she is either, but when I looked into it, yeah, this is seemingly similar to what California did. And I know because I had a house that I was renting over there. And let me tell you, I couldn't even have a key to my own property, which is so messed up. But here we go. I'm gonna share it here, and you guys let me know, man. This is nuts. This if this is true, this is nuts. And here we go. Oh, wait, the volume.
Day one is going to be for the city to of people's private properties. And how is he going to go about this? First of all, he's going to make it so unaffordable for these landlords to make any repairs because of rent freezing. If you freeze the rent, then the landlords eventually won't be able to pay for the repairs because they're not getting the same income, they're not making the same amount of money as they used to. Number two, he's then going to give these people fines because they're not doing the repairs, and these fines are going to be huge. Then once the city comes back in and says, oh, you know what, you didn't do the repairs, you didn't pay the fines, we are now going to take your property because you are an unfit landlord. The city's going to take the property, seize it, take ownership, and then they're going to turn that property into subsidized housing. Who's that housing going to benefit? It's going to benefit criminals, it's going to benefit illegals, it's going to benefit the prostitutes, it's going to benefit all of the people that Mamdani is going to let out of the prisons. And on top of it, there aren't going to be any police because that's his other order of business, is going to be to defund the police. Basically, Mamdani is turning New York City into a third world country. Meanwhile, white liberal women are literally like parading around singing the Little Mamdani song, thinking that they did such a good job. When you live next to criminals and you're paying $6,000 a month and they're not, then we'll see how happy you are. Mamdani just
so just real quick. So what, telling you about that property in California, and around COVID, I had a tenant that I couldn't get out. And I was, I even told her, you don't have to pay me the whole year, whatever, because I just wanted to sell the property. Just let me sell the property. And she wouldn't let me out, let the realtor show the property. She wouldn't work with me, and I couldn't do anything. And any repairs, she would sue me for it. Like, oh, this and that. And in California, I don't know if it's changed or not, but in 2021, I couldn't go over there and fix it myself because it has to be a licensed plumber or a licensed electrician, a licensed HVAC to repair. And even though it's my house and I want to fix it, and it's something simple as just like a light fixture, like, you know what I mean? Like, not I'm talking about, the actual fixture that gives the light, right? If I wanted to change that, I couldn't, because then if I get sued, I am like, I have to let her have some rent free, which it was horrible. It was very horrible. So when I heard this, I'm like, man, I don't know how New York is. I know in Texas, man, thank God for Texas though. You know,
Right.
I can evict somebody in 3 days, you know, but in New York, I don't know if that's how it is. I would have wished Crystal was here to ask her take on that, but um, it's scary. So, what do you think, Rolando? Being a construction guy, and eventually, I'm sure you'll either have properties or you might get properties. I mean, how is that motivating?
Well, when it comes to the situation that you see in New York, with the sky high rent, I want to say number one, New York has always been expensive, no matter what decade you live in New York. So
That's
part
true.
of the problem is they're complaining. They're complaining that they can't live in a major US city for dirt cheap rent. It's never worked that way, okay? And it never will work that way. People flock to these cities because, you know, capitalism. They want to set out, they want to make money. But one of the big problems that I see with these major cities, when you look at LA, Chicago, and New York, those three specifically, is that they're full of creatives. Okay. If you don't know what a creative is, it's an artist. Okay. It's basically someone who's maybe talented at singing, acting, something in the arts, painting, that kind of stuff. But the problem with creatives is they build nothing. Okay. They build absolutely nothing.
Good point.
All righty.
Yeah, very
And
good point.
they are very liberal in their thinking. Okay. Now, don't get me wrong. Every society needs creatives. Okay, we can't survive without them, like we couldn't survive without anybody else. But one of the big problems that we're running across is that people are idolizing these people. They're idolizing the actor, they're idolizing, the singer, the pop star, that kind of stuff. And interesting thing is that in Roman society, okay, actor, which they had theater, were the lowest among Roman socialites. And the reason they were the lowest is because the Roman socialites would say that these people don't live in reality. That was their knock on
Yeah.
them, okay? That they don't live in reality. And it's kind of funny when you read that in the history books and then you look at where we're at now, that these people have gone from the lowest of the low, okay, to the top of the proverbial food chain. It's interesting with that. But when you have cities that are just packed full of creatives like this, okay, and they get to these cities and they realize that not everybody makes it as an actor, not everybody makes it as a musician and an artist and that kind of thing. So they get to these cities and they have to get mediocre jobs,
Yeah.
okay? Waiter, waitress, this, that. Now you're still in the big city and you still having to pay big city rent. Okay. So now the resentment starts to build up easily. Very easily. I'm not getting what I feel I'm owed. Okay, because there's a lot of entitlement going on. So
Yep.
they got a little resentment going on from that. They're working a job that they don't want to work at all. There's more resentment from that. And then when you look at your housing, basically you're living in a broom closet for $3,000 a month. So
You're not lying.
they definitely are happy with that.
Yep.
No, nobody want to live in a broom closet for 3 grand. All right. So, this is how you get the mom dummies of the world. And
Yeah.
then you throw in, the structure, the political structure in there. Okay. And it is a cocktail for straight misery. All right. When you throw those Democratic, uh, what I like to call it, morals. Okay. Let's say morals. You throw those Democratic morals in there,
Okay.
you're done because they're only interested in playing politics. They got the New York is a perfect example. New York and California are two grade A examples. Highest taxes, Okay, the public transit in New York should look like what they got in Japan, but it doesn't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
they've
You're
raised
right.
taxes, I
Yep.
believe, three to five times, claiming we're raising your taxes so we could fix the subway, we could fix public transportation, but yet they haven't replaced a single rail car, they haven't replaced a single track, they haven't done anything. Now this guy comes in, and what is he talking about when he's talking about homes? He's talking about affordability, catering to the creatives who basically feel shut out of the American dream. But the problem with his plan is that builders dictate homes. You've red taped this thing so much, and I'm in the construction business. And New York and California,
Yep.
you cannot build anything.
Yes.
Okay. And when you do that, you limit. New York is already limited in the space. That's why they build to the sky.
Hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
All their stuff is 30-story apartment buildings, 40 stories, 50 stories, just because they just don't have the room. So the last thing you need is to be installing a bunch of red tape and making it even harder for them to build anything. So once they create the crisis, what do? They sit there and try to sell you the answer. But you can't sell the answer. You created the problem.
Yeah.
It's a talking point to them now. They're not interested in fixing housing.
No.
To them, it's another
No.
talking point. Hey, elect me. I'll get you cheaper rent. And it never work out that way.
Mm. Man, so what do you think? I mean, is New York toast, or I mean, is there
Oh, they're
hope?
toast.
So, yes, um, Rolando, that was such a great point you
I
made
know it really was.
on the
Yeah.
creatives. I'm actually writing about this now. First of all, the woman in the video is 100% correct. And I know this because they're not just doing this in New York. This idea of rent freeze, if you really know, there are many, many, many blue cities that are developing bills and policies for rent freezes. You may be one where you live. Your city council may be entertaining it. You've got to understand how these things come to fruition. They have national agendas. And this is where the whole conspiracy theory stuff is actually true. And I've worked in politics. So what happens is there is a national agenda, and Democrats tend to be very good at they're elected locally, but they govern nationally, meaning San Francisco enacts the same types of laws as New York, enacts the same types of laws as DC, enacts the same types of laws as Chicago. Now, if you look at this business with allowing theft of less than $1,000 not to be a misdemeanor, you notice that happened everywhere, all at about the same time in all blue places.
Yep.
So all of a sudden, everybody woke up who's in a blue governed area and found out that you can just go into Walgreens and to CVS and you can steal $999 per day. And it was a misdemeanor or it was decriminalized. And the people then just started closing up Walgreens. San Francisco, I remember when they closed 17 Walgreens and they closed them in the poorest, most impoverished area, in CVS's, and all of this happened all over the country. Well, the reason that happens is because those people who run for elected office or who run for district attorney are funded by the same national sources to
Hmm.
do
Oh, okay.
exactly those things. So they are sending people into these areas to enact these policies. That's why you see this stuff is happening simultaneously everywhere. And she's absolutely correct. Next item on their agenda is the rent freeze. And it is the rent
Hmm.
freeze because there is a desire on the part of the left to seize private property, because private property from the inception of this country, from the actual mouth of the founders, is the only way to keep people independent from the tyranny of a government. And they want
Wow.
people dependent. And you cannot have private property, and you cannot have wealth, and you cannot have any kind of independence where there is private property and wealth. So there has always been an assault on private property. And slowly but surely, I'm sure wherever you live, there is some condition right now today where the government, your local government, is able to take dilapidated housing. If a
Yeah.
house has been abandoned, it's
Yep.
it's fallen, it's so dilapidated, everything is hanging off it, the government can seize it. Well, what is happening is they have figured out that that is an excellent avenue. That right now there are probably a ton of conditions on when and how bad the situation has to get before the government can legitimately come in and take the property. They are trying to remove those conditions. And what they have found is that if a landlord, if it's no longer profitable to be a landlord, it is much quicker to get a house into the conditions, which therefore now make it eligible to be seized. And let me
Yeah.
tell you what they want. They are not going to spend their time going
Mm.
after these corporate houses, these corporate conglomerates
Nope.
that own 900,000 units across the city. They want grandma's brownstone that
Yep.
has been turned into 6 units, and that's the nest egg and all your family has. And so not going to be able to go to court and fight them and possibly go to
Nope.
the Supreme Court and pursue your constitutional right for private property unless some organization picks you up, but they're all funded by the left, so they won't. That's whose property they're coming to get. That's whose property they're coming to get. And I'm even going to go a step further. They specifically want those units, and they want the single family homes of America. You see, I
Yeah.
don't know if you own any kind of rental property, or if you own a single family home, you get no less than 4 or 5 calls a week with somebody calling you, telling you they'll give you cash for your house. All of a sudden, in the last 3 years, what is the great impetus on cash for my house? I had the same house 6 years ago, nobody was calling me. Last 3 years, I can't stop my phone from ringing
Yep.
for cash for your house. Why do
Yep.
they want cash for your house? Because they want a monopoly on housing. Because if they own the housing, then they can determine who lives where. This
Yep.
is an anti-freedom, anti-capitalist, and in my opinion, anti-American movement. The woman in the video is right, and this is not just happening in New York. Check your local area. It is happening near you too.
Hold
Wow.
on, Celeste.
Yes.
I wanted to add something to Celeste
Yeah. Go.
soliloquy there. Just that I knew San Francisco was in trouble when they closed the oldest Macy's in the country.
Oh.
Remember that? It was over 100 years old. I believe it
Wow.
opened back in the sometime in the 1890s,
Mm.
and literally they closed it down. It's gone now. That's
So,
when I knew San Francisco was in deep.
oh,
Which, oh, we lost them. But man, San
I want to bring
Francisco.
that up. I knew San Francisco was in trouble when they had, this is about 4 or 5 years ago, the American Medical Association, which apparently had been having their annual medical conference in San Francisco for like 20 years. Like they religiously every year had their medical conference in San Francisco, and they canceled it because of too much human feces on the ground in San Francisco. In fact, when you visit, they have something called a poop map for tourists to show them the areas where there's too much human
Wow.
feces on the sidewalk. I said, okay, yeah, I'm
Oh
out.
man.
Yeah.
Y'all can have
Yeah.
that.
When I went to look at the property as I was when I fast forward, I finally got that tenant out, and I was like, man, but here's the thing. I had to pay somebody to stay there because while I'm
Squatters.
selling it, Yeah, they were breaking into it, and I kept repairing the doors and the windows. But I always tell everybody when I go to California, I'm I do this, and the reason why I do that is because I want to see the beautiful view, and I'm covering the poops and the people there. I'm just covering it, and everything else is beautiful. Just gotta walk like this. But anyways, that is crazy. I didn't know that the oldest Macy's, was closed. That's crazy. When did that happen?
Yeah,
You
I've,
said like in the 90s.
that happened not too long ago. That's when they started doing the cashless bail. And basically, just like Celeste was saying, they started looting the Walgreens, Targets, CVS, all these different places, and Macy's wasn't immune to it either. It got to the
Oh
point
man.
where they were literally chaining their clothes, and things like that to try to keep people from walking out. But then between that and the shortages of the police departments, be it San Francisco or Oakland, they just couldn't keep up. And that's these liberal policies that they want to put in place. When I went to California, I got to see why people love California so much, because I actually drove in and I went the southwest route through Yuma, okay,
Oh,
into San
beautiful. Yeah.
Diego. And I got to see a lot of the ocean coming in. I got to see the marinas. I got to see the houses sitting on the side of cliffs and things like that. And I was just like, man, California is gorgeous.
So
But then you
beautiful. Yeah.
drive into the city, and then you see disgust, you know, where it's people literally living on the streets, doing drugs on the streets. It literally looks like Shutter Island when you walk down there, bro. It's just
It
junkies walking
does.
down the
Yeah.
street. And I'm just like, bro, this is like, you know what it reminds me of? The scene of the movie New Jack City, the Carter.
Mm-hmm.
When it's
Oh,
like going
yeah.
into the apartment complex for the first time and you see junkies walking by.
Oh, yeah. What? Yeah. Like
And
spazzing out and everything. Yeah.
I'm just like, oh my God, man, this is like a
Yep.
whole nother world, you know. And it made me never want to go back to California ever again
But
because
see how manipulative this is, because those people think that every state is like that. When I talk to my brother-in-law and he lives there, he thinks there's the way it looks, where there's bums having, and I'm sorry for using that word, that's just my word, but the bums having, using number two on playing on the sidewalk, and I'm over here, covering my kids' eyes, and he's like, you know, he's looking at me like, oh, you guys think y'all are all that, and it's just that just happens, and I'm like, dude, that's not normal.
They've
That doesn't
normalized
happen
it.
where I'm at. Yeah,
They've
he.
normalized it, and this is why I wrote a column for an outfit, which is actually still up. It's called "Refugees on the Move."
Okay.
And this is why people are leaving. There is an exodus from, we are seeing now the great migration, and the turn of the century, it was people coming south to north. We are seeing the reverse of that. In fact, I'm moving south. I called a moving company when I told them where I'm going, and the woman who is taking my information, about where I'm moving from and moving to and all of that. The first thing she said, "Yeah, yeah, all our trucks are only going one direction these days."
Oh man,
She said, "And we're losing money because no one's coming back."
Wow.
She
that's
said, "The
crazy.
moving business usually has a load that goes one way, and then you pick up a load to come back this way." She said, "We only go
Exactly.
one direction. No one's coming back."
Wow, man. Dion, get up in there. What do you think? Can you hear me, Dion?
I
Uh
think
oh,
she's
she's
frozen.
frozen. Oh man.
that's okay. I'll keep going.
Yeah, but it's just crazy though. The fact that the and see, it's being manipulative, because you notice that when, remember, the president of China was coming to
Oh, they
California, they
changed it
cleaned up
all up.
that street
Yeah, yes,
right away.
yes. They were down there with the windshields and wiping and spot
Yeah,
cleaning and absolutely all of that. It,
oh
well, they could do it when they
Heck,
wanted. But this real people really have to understand and see how diabolical this really is. And this is why, on the one hand, I try to remain reasonable, but everything that's a conspiracy theory isn't wrong,
yeah,
because
Yeah.
these intentions, I always say you can't have an accident in multiple places simultaneously. That's not an accident, that's coordination. When
yeah,
you start to see the same thing happening at exactly the same time in different locations, you're not looking at a coincidence. You're looking at a plan.
yeah,
This
You
is
exactly.
a
know,
plan.
you know what's funny, Celeste, is that people can see the stark contrast between living in a blue state versus living in a red state. You know, a state like New York has taxes about, they're getting to the same rate as Canada. Canada, I believe, is currently at 52%.
Hmm.
Okay, so they're taking literally more than half of your pay. If I'm not mistaken, I believe New York is at 48.
Oh man.
It's 40 something. I don't remember what it is, but
Yeah,
it's high.
somewhere
Between
in there.
state and federal, yeah.
Yes. And they fix nothing. They fix absolutely nothing. Their subways, garbage. Their public transportation, buses, garbage. Okay, I've lived in that area. I've taken their public transportation. Okay, my brother in the early '80s used to be a guardian angel with
Hmm.
Sliwa.
Hmm.
Okay, my sister used to catch the subway, and she was almost SA'd on the subway. My
Oh
dad
my
gave
gosh.
her, yeah, gave her a bottle of pepper spray, mace, that she would carry on a keychain. Used to come in a little leather case. That's how they came back in the day, with a little leather case. And she ended up macing the guy and was able to run fast enough to catch a subway cop and, have the guy arrested and, whatnot. But this is what New York used to be in the 70s and the 80s, you know. And people don't know that with this new mayor, that's what New York is going to turn into,
Hmm.
and this is really sad because
Before
people don't
Giuliani.
learn. Yeah,
Yeah.
people don't learn from their history. you know I wasn't born in the 70s. I was born in the 80s, but I didn't live through that 70s, early 80s kind of debacle they had going on there. But I always made it a point to learn what it was like.
But
And then this. Go ahead,
you
Celeste.
may not have lived at that time, and the problem with that is, and I this is why I think it's so brilliant, your point. I'm telling you now, you may hear me repeat that again somewhere, about those creatives. The problem is that you've got a generation of people who went to school, who are massively in debt, and they went with no guidance, and most of them have no way to get from underneath that debt, because most of the stuff that they went to study is no longer useful in the
Meaningless. Yeah.
current day economy, and they're mad. And this is how irrational, this is how I know a lot of this is spun by women, because their anger is
Yeah.
at a level of irrationality that I think that says girl power all over it. They're mad to the point where they're almost okay that nothing works out for them. What they're really concerned with is that nothing work out for you.
Hmm.
They're on the
Mm.
I want to tear it down for you, because I already know I'm not going to work hard enough to change this around for me. But I don't want to be here watching you succeed.
Hmm.
And
Oh
especially
man.
if you didn't go $200,000 in debt and you learned HVAC, or you are um, a carpenter, or you know how to build, so you can buy a foreclosure house that looks like nothing, and inside of 9 months with a group of your friends, you can do most of the work yourself and flip it and turn a profit. Oh, they're not happy about that.
Yeah.
They're
And they're
not
not
happy.
happy.
A lot of this, and the Bible
Mm-mm.
speaks about this, and this is why this word is often attached to the socialist movement. A lot of this is fueled by envy.
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
And
Go
resentment.
ahead, Dion.
There's a lot
And
of
resentment,
resentment in
yes.
there.
Dion, what do you think? Get in there.
Sorry, I my Wi-Fi is doing something wacky, and I lost a little bit of what was being said. So
No,
I don't even
mine froze too. You're just fine.
know.
Yeah, mine. I think we're all have. I mean, at least mine. The first video it didn't want to play. It was like I don't know, but yeah, Dion. So basically, what we're talking about is that video with that lady uh, about the renters being frozen rent. And
Mhm.
what do you think? New York is toast. You think that's a very good thing for the country to adapt? Because for years it was, which I pray that it's not like that, but for years that's why it was a big spook that New York was an example, and everything trickled behind it. So little by little, which I hope that's not the case in this time. But what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I feel sorry for New York. I have a friend who lives in New York, and when Mamdani won, I was like, you know, are you gonna stay there? I mean, he works a lot in commercial real estate, and I guess he feels like he's gonna just continue to get the business for as long as he can. I guess he's gonna try to extract as much money out as he can, but it's sad to me. And like you said, I'm hoping that it won't be going to be to follow. I'm hoping that the effect is that people city gets so that the backlash is so great that the rest of the country will see it too, and that it will wake
Yeah.
more people to the fact that we have been infiltrated and we are just basically being a welcome mat to this going down, and to wake up, and we need to fight back, so to speak. Yeah, it's very concerning. The fact that Mom Donnie, I mean, we knew it was going to happen because we could see the trend. I found that it was so disheartening, and I know that's true with the entire nation, though. But of the, like, what, 9 million people that live in New York City, only 2 million or so came out to vote. What in the world is
Yeah.
going on? Have we forgotten, even as far as from the presidential election? Well, not that New York
Well,
City was massively for Trump, but my gosh, what's gonna motivate people to get up and try to do their part to make their own voice be heard, or their vote be heard, at least?
and I think I think the thing is that the reason why is because they didn't have good options. I'm
Yeah.
gonna be real. They
They
Good.
didn't.
all three of those candidates suck, but at the
Yeah.
same time, I mean, Solis and Rolando were bringing something up that, man, it stuck with me. Yeah, Rolando called them creators. Solis, you were talking about
Yeah.
the envy and the anger, and honestly, people think that, and I tell this to my 24-year-old. She's trying to get a bachelor's in business, and I'm telling her this: don't come out thinking because you have a bachelor's now, you're entitled for a job. And see, for years, that's what they would drill us in head. Go to school, that's it. You're done. You're gonna make money. And so we think that, but that's not the truth. The truth is, guess what? If you're gonna come out to be a brain surgeon, the guy that's been doing brain surgeries for like 30 years plus, is going to make more money than you. You're not going to make the same amount of
Mhm.
money as him coming out of the jump. You're going to be an intern for a while. You're going to learn to, you're going to have to humble yourself again and start from the bottom. But the difference is your bottom is kind of well paid, but they don't want that. They want to have that mentality, like, and this is why liberals have a hard time, like they want all these unions, they want all, and I had this discussion with my daughter, my middle child, because she's in a debate, and they were debating whether unions, anyways, but unions, they think like, oh, you've made a journeyman, so now all journeymans make the same. And it sounds good for the people that don't know how to negotiate their own price, but in non-union environment, you'll have people that will make less than even the journeyman of the union, right? But guess what? You also have people that make way more than what the journeyman, the union pay, right? And the
Mhm.
reason why is because what you're a product. So if you can produce, then guess what? You make more money. Because I'm sure if I worked in Rolando's company, if I produce more jobs for him as an estimator, he would be like, you know what, Robert? Yeah, you deserve this bonus. Here you go. And then if I'm like, hey, Rolando, I've been working for you for 5 years now. Uh, I know that the wages in the union is like 90K. I want to make 100K. I want to break the ceiling. And Rolando's like, man, you've been producing this, and this and that. You made me over 3 million, every 3 months or something, he'd be like, heck yeah, you can have the 100K, right? But
Well,
What
unions will
well,
talk.
what I hear, Rolando has them chopping wood. That's what I heard.
Oh,
well, well, in the construction business, for something like a estimator, normally it's a hourly rate plus a commission on top.
yep,
So depending on what you sell the job for, the commission usually can be anywhere from 5 to 10%,
yep,
which is pretty profitable when you're dealing with jobs that could run into the 15, 20, 30,000. 5% of 30,000, that's $1,500. So if you sold two of those a week plus your hourly pay, you're making pretty good money. So for example, and then you get these kind of scenarios that I just got today. My general contractor, he basically called me and said, hey man, I need you to do a job on a short timeline, which is about a month in my business. Because
yeah,
we had to round up the engineer, we got to round up the layout guy, we got to round up the cut guy. It's some serious cowboy wrangling going on with some of these guys because they're all independent.
Mhm.
correct.
So you have to kind of bring everybody's schedule together and then get everybody to the job site at the same time. And it's easier said than done because most of the time it doesn't work out like that. But in this particular scenario, the reason it's such on a short timeline because this is a different general contractor than the guy I deal with. And basically, I guess he subcontracted a guy, gave him a $10,000 deposit, and now the guy's nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be
Man,
found. So that's 10,000 that guy never see back. And what I was explaining to someone is that, in that situation, he might lose some money out of pocket, but for the most part, what happens when something like that happens is you're now doing the job for free. There is no
yeah,
profit there, or very little. So if you're able to break even or make little profit when something like that happens, you're doing very well. But you get all types of road hazards like that in the construction business, man. And but the money is really great. And these guys, for this younger generation, really look into the trades
Yeah.
because right now this AI is gonna really downsize a lot of jobs
yep,
that's gonna be coming to the market, and until
yep,
the American worker can get trained into what's coming, because right now we have an untrained workforce, and it's not because they're lazy and they don't want to learn. It's just our jobs were gutted back in the 70s and the 80s, right on into the 90s, where Canada feels like the jobs they're losing now It's something they were entitled to. No, those were our jobs before they were
Yep.
your jobs.
Yep.
You know, they forget what Detroit was like in the 40s, the 50s, the
Mhm,
60s.
mhm.
You know, all those homes that you see now that are burned out, abandoned, all those factories when
Which
you
is
drive through a
sad.
Detroit, you know, these were all gutted and sent to Canada. Now Canada, basically the tables have turned, and now Canada is getting a
Hmm.
dose of what we got back in the 60s and 70s, you know, when they started gutting them out until the 90s, until they fully gutted them out. You know, so I had
Yep.
no sympathy, and that's why I was talking the other night with Wise, and I kind of went on a ramble on the back end because Canada had the audacity to run a ad in the United States during the World Series, which I'm a baseball fan myself, okay, using Ronald Reagan's voice from a speech that he gave back in the 80s
Oh,
about
yeah.
tariffs,
Mhm.
you know, which the Ronald Reagan Foundation came
They had to
out
take
and
it back.
said
Yeah.
that it was
Yep.
altered, you know, to make it seem like Ronald Reagan was
Oh,
against tariffs when he was actually pro tariffs, you know, when the situation called for it, you know. So they ran that ad during the World Series, and we believe, and when I say we, I mean me and Trump, we believe that they did it to influence the Supreme Court decision. You know,
Yeah.
as the premier Doug Ford said, he said he wanted the
Wow.
MAGA Republicans fighting with the Reagan Republicans. But the little thing that old Doug Ford forgot is that that speech was given in 87, if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in
Hmm.
there. Um, Mr. Mr. Doug Ford, let me be the first to let you know from a true hardcore MAGA, all the Reagan Republicans are dead, bro. Okay, they've been dead for a long time. All right. So if you think that's gonna be some MAGA fighting against some Reagan Republicans, dude, there is no Reagan Republicans left. It's just MAGA. And you managed to piss us all off.
Yep.
Okay.
Mhm.
All
And
at one time.
fun fact, MAGA was originally from Ronald Reagan. That's where Trump got inspired to use it. And in fact, Bill Clinton
Mhm.
even used it in
Yes.
one of his
Yep.
campaigns.
Yes.
Sure did.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
You
They
know,
just
You
so
know,
they couldn't sell it the way Trump sold it, but they did.
nope. Yes, correct.
They did use
Mhm.
it for, and actually even Trump's in 2016 his economic policy of low regulation, lower taxes, that was John F. Kennedy's.
Yep.
The
Yep.
Democrats,
Yes, it
before they
was.
decided to become communists, had that. That was their policy. They threw it away. He just picked it up.
That's the whole
See,
So,
thing
and
with Trump and why he's so amazing
yep,
is because he takes their own stuff because Trump was
yes.
Democrat
Mhm.
at
it
one
was.
point.
Yes.
And then, well, once he ran, he decided, of course, to run Republican, which messed their minds up. But he is using their own stuff like against them. And I mean, the man is just brilliant, really.
I could say
Yeah,
with 100% certainty that Trump is the worst racist I've ever seen in my life. Like
absolutely.
Yeah,
if I was the Grand
not
Wizard
good
of
at
the
it at
local
all.
KKK, I'm revoking his racist card
Right,
immediately.
right.
Okay, because
He's not good at it at
this
all.
this is absolutely ridiculous. You know,
Mhm.
but Celeste, I wanted to kind of get your insight because I always value your insight. What do you think about that ad that Canada ran in the U.S.? Did you see it?
I didn't see it, but I saw the clips afterwards. And I saw when they had to retract because they had misused and spliced Ronald Reagan's voice so that it appeared that he was saying something that really in the speech he did not say. So I do remember that was only like a month and a half ago, like 6 weeks ago. I do remember that. And I think that Canada is trying to, and they, they're trying to be in a for lack of a better term, a pissing contest with Trump. And they may not. They should look around the rest of the world and see where that worked, because I'm not sure it's going to work that well. It's going to work that well for them in the end. But I believe in national sovereignty. Go ahead and try.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm gonna tell you now, as a sports fan, I was just kicking it, watching Otani. I was having a great time watching my baseball. The great World Series. It went 7 games. It was excitement all the way through. I know Robert was watching because he's Spanish, and Spanish
Yeah.
people, we just got a thing with. We just got a serious love affair with baseball for some
Yeah.
reason. I don't know that, and pork just flows through the blood.
Yeah.
Okay,
Pork. Yep.
and
Chicharrón.
yep, yeah, exactly. So, but when I saw that ad come out, and then at the end it said, brought to you by Ontario.
Mm.
Let me tell you, all that good
They got
Christianity
some
went
nerve.
right out the window. I was dropping all types of F
Is
bombs,
it?
all types of mother this, and the audacity, and I threw all my maple syrup away. Let me tell you, I
He
was
said he grabbed
let me
that
tell
maple
you,
syrup and threw it.
I was inconsolable. I was
Wow.
inconsolable for like 3 days. I was irate.
Well, let
Okay.
me let me give you something to ease your pain. They're on the cusp of a civil war up there too. Alberta wants to succeed. There's
Yes.
a
Yes, they
real
do.
talk that they want to get away. And from what I understand, that most of the country's oil reserves are in Alberta. So,
Yes.
I mean, if they go, or even if they want to do standalone or whatever they end up coming to, I mean, Canada's got its own trouble, kind of keeping its own provinces together. They don't have time to be making commercials and
Yeah,
ruining
they
their
actually they actually have 3 provinces that are
yeah.
really on the border. If Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Ontario already had a vote years ago to secede from Canada, and they came really close, on that vote. So I don't know what Ottawa is doing up there, with their carbon tax, and then they're basically just milking Alberta and Saskatchewan and every other province for money to fund their
Mhm,
liberal agenda, and people are not happy at all. And I
mhm,
tell people in the US, if you want to see what they wanted to do to the US, just have a glance over at Canada,
mhm,
because
mhm.
that's what was going on
Hey,
there.
yeah.
Because with their liberal policies, they have the same money laundering operation that was going on in USAID here. They got it going on there. The
Mhm.
exact same. There is no difference.
Well,
They're
it's like
they're
Yep,
it's like
that's
I
true.
said, these things are not happening independent. This is a plan. This is the same people,
yes.
and not only in the United States, they're working through multiple cities, but on a global scale, they work through multiple countries.
Yes. And when we talk about it, this is just not a local thing. It's just
Mm.
like Celeste said. They're pushing this agenda in Ireland, in UK, in Canada, anywhere that will listen. Luckily, in the UK, you're starting to see a real revolt from the people.
That's almost
And I
how it
was,
is over there.
yeah, and I was
Yeah,
saying
for
it.
real.
I
Yep.
said it's a powder keg because first, when people see something they don't like, they're going to protest. Okay. And the protests are going to keep elevating. And the more you don't listen to the people, the more violent, the more extreme these protests get. And when the people finally feel like they're not going to be heard at all, that's when the violence starts.
Hmm.
And that's what you're starting to see, especially in Ireland. Okay. People forget this is the home of the IRA.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
And
true.
people forget what the IRA was in the 80s.
Hmm.
Okay. So these are the type of people that, yeah, they're cool and, everything else. You can go down to the pub, have some drinks with them. But let me tell you, they are really invested into their culture and their way of life, and they feel like it's being threatened right now. and you're starting to see a lot of skirmishes of violence where they're showing up to immigrant hotels and
Yes.
actually committing acts of violence. So people are fighting back against this global agenda. They see the writing on the wall, and I'm gonna tell you now, with Trump's election, that's what really kicked things forward because nobody was saying nothing. As soon as Trump got elected and they see, okay, the US ain't going along with this, you notice every other country started to follow suit. The people of every
Hmm.
other country had started to kick back
Mhm.
and say, hey, we doing like the Americans are doing. We don't want this woke crap. We don't want this immigration crap, this, that. And Trump was their rallying cry, basically.
But it's scary because you know, we're the last hope, and we
Yes.
almost lost our country.
You
And if it wasn't
did.
for Trump, the viewers who, whether you hate the guy or love the guy, but he woke up the beast and he made people come out and actually care about politics. And then we're finding out where there's the term woke, right? The buzzword. We woke up and realized, like, you know what? Holy crap, this is important. And man, Trump seriously saved America, and I know that's a hard pill for them leftists to hear that,
Oh
but
yeah.
hey, it's the truth,
Robert,
you know.
I always wondered because I'm a student of history and I would read a lot into World War II, and one question I always had was how can you propagate, how can you brainwash literally a whole nation, And for a long time, I had a hard time understanding that concept until I seen this woke stuff. And I see how riled up people get, how engaged they are, how enraged they are. They're willing to go out to the streets and lay out in the street and, sacrifice their bodies
Mhm.
and all that. Because I never understood how it was that this guy with a funny mustache can brainwash literally millions and millions and millions of people into doing what they did, you know. And when I seen the woke mob, now I get it.
Well, and part of
Yeah.
that is this: you can do it under certain conditions. So the fact that Germany was in the condition it was in after World War One was what a lot. When people are hurting, they get real susceptible to stupidity, and that's
Yeah,
Yeah.
that
and
was part of that. That was part of the Allies and that Treaty of Versailles. They really stuck it to the
they
Germans.
did, they did. But the reason that's and this is why I'm so I talk so badly about education, and I mean every word of it. But the reason why is because that's why you have to be on guard about people who want to create conditions of misery for us. Just like Robert was talking about with his video about New York. You got to be very careful when you systematically putting people into these very dire conditions, because history has shown once you can do that, they're real susceptible to any kind of stupidity. So you've got these local governments, and they're just turning the screws and turning the
Yeah.
screws, and little by little the noose is just getting tighter and tighter. People are not going to be able to take that. And that's why you could say, I mean, I could say, I don't live in New York. I have no plans to live in New York. So who cares what happens to them? Well, to a certain extent, you do have to care a little bit when those things are
Yep.
happening. One, because if it's successful at doing it to them, they're going to come and try and do it to you. So
Yep.
stop it over there before it gets here.
And you touched on something so true. See, the Germans, they were beaten up,
Hmm.
and here comes this guy. He sounded good. They
Hmm.
elected him. Then and what Rolando was saying, how they brainwashed. He manipulated them. Hence the title of the art of manipulation. He
Hmm.
manipulated them and rounded them up to think that, hey, the social programs I promised you can't happen because these group of people, which were the Jewish community,
Hmm.
these group of people were the reason why you can't have what I promise, and I can't do anything. I need you to give me to elect me to prime minister, to emperor, so I can be in charge of everything. Worry about it, and I'll fix this. And they were hurt people, so they signed up to it. And it's just like they got manipulated, and then like started hating these people out of no reason. And I feel like what's going on in New York, hence why I'm tying all this together with in this episode, is because I see a similar situation going on. All these people that, and I like this word that I'm going to use it again, these that's what they call them, right?
Yep, creators,
They
creatives.
they
Yep.
came, yeah, they're coming here angry because they're not being successful of what they went to school for, or what they decided to, be singers. They didn't get talent. So guess what? They're angry, and now they elected this mayor, and who knows what's going to happen from then. But history has shown us that it's not good, so like you said, Celise, I don't live there, I shouldn't care, but it actually, it's still part of America, and it's scary that it's happening here now in our backyard, literally. Yep.
Yeah, creatives,
Yep.
But
creatives are great for the society. Don't get me wrong; they definitely contribute. The problem is that they've all amassed in these, major cities. The Chicago's and the New York and the California, because of the movie industry, the music industry. Very artsy. If you're an artist, you do paintings, that kind of thing. That's where all the money is. So that's where you're gonna flock
yep.
to. So you have creatives coming from all 50 states, to all meet up in these three places, all hoping to get, their 15 minutes of fame. And they get there and they realize that in the big city, things are a little bit different. These people are coming from small towns, close knit communities, that kind of stuff. You come into the city, nobody cares about
Yeah.
anybody. Everybody's all wrapped up in what they have going on, so you find yourself isolated, and then you start throwing all the other factors on top of it, like living conditions, the cost of food, the cost of everything is higher, cost of public transportation, all these costs. And then even when the winter comes around, I remember growing up and the winter would come around and my parents are struggling to buy us all winter jackets, struggling to buy us, winter clothes, so we can survive 20 degrees, 10-degree weather, -10, -5, that kind of stuff. So these cities, it didn't really surprise me that Mom Downing got elected, for the simple fact of, who else did they have?
Mm.
You had Cuomo, and
Yeah.
Cuomo just has an atrocious record. We don't even have to get into that. Everybody already knows what his
I
record is.
know.
Then you got Eric Adams,
Yeah.
Mr. Flip Flop, and Democrats don't like that flip flop. 1 minute you're a sanctuary city, next minute, you're whatever, you know. Um 1 minute you're, hey man, I'm not handing over anybody. To the next minute, hey, I hand over whoever you want.
Hmm.
He's the Stephen
And
A.
then
Smith of mayors.
yeah, and then
Yeah. He's
and then all of a sudden, I think this was his death knell though. All of a sudden, your little charges disappear. So now
wow.
the Democrats are looking at you like you capitulated with Trump to get your charges, dismissed for the Turkish bribes that they accused him of taking. Remember that? And it
Mhm.
quietly just kind of went away. So Eric Adams didn't have a shot in hell either, because they all thought they basically he was in cahoots with this administration, to get out of the charges. Like they made some kind of back deal. Hey man, give us the illegals, the illegals in your city. And DOJ will magically look the other way.
And I'm not sure those charges weren't trumped up because they never came to the surface until he started talking about you can't just keep bringing illegals into New York and not giving New York any money to
Yep.
pay for them. all of a sudden
Yep.
now he's corrupt. I'm not saying he wasn't. I'm simply saying maybe he was corrupt and the Biden administration was never going to say anything about it. But as soon as he spoke out, they were like, where's his file?
Yep. Yep.
Celeste, let
Yeah.
me tell
Bring
you,
his
the
file over
Democrats,
here. Yep.
Like,
yeah,
somebody gave me that.
The Democrats operate a lot like a mafia
Oh,
family.
they so
Yes.
serious.
Yes.
Oh,
They are
You
so
yes.
know, they
serious.
really do.
Don't play with
Yes,
Because
the
they
the
do.
people.
second
They really do.
the the
Hey, but
second
that's why
Eric
I'm
Adams
afraid.
say, "Hey,
Hey, I'm afraid of the liberal white people. I'm afraid of the liberal white people. I can deal with racist, racist
Absolutely.
backwoods white people. I can deal with that. It's some people that are like, oh yes, hi, I'm inclusive and all this stuff. They're evil, man, because you don't know what you're gonna get, and I hate to bring that up, but that just reminded me of that, like
no,
we come in peace,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely
And
right, dude. They
especially the
literally
women.
operate like a crime family. That's what they
Yep.
operate as." The second Eric Adams said, "Hey, um, listen, I don't want to go along with this sanctuary city stuff and bankrupting my city." Next thing you know, DOJ presses charges, hey, you've been taking money from the Turks, and that's how they
Mm,
operate, man. They have dirt on every single one of their members, so the second one of them gets out of line, hey man, you took money from over here, or you weren't supposed to do this, and I noticed that with Democrats. The second you're not marching in lockstep, you're cooked. Why you think we had a government shutdown for 43 days? Who can keep
yeah.
that many people in line for that long when you're getting calls from your constituents saying, hey, open the damn government?
Wow.
Do you think
You
they were?
know? Huh?
I know a ton of Democrats. None of them ever complained.
No,
I
I'm
know.
wondering.
Yeah,
no.
I'm
exactly.
Wow.
wondering if there really were Democrats who were calling saying open the government. I'm not sure there were.
Nope.
I
They were
don't. I
mad. They
don't
were
May,
think.
mad because they opened
well,
it.
I don't
Probably
think
well,
not, because
Democrats
they all thought it
well,
opened.
was Trump.
the reason I say that, Celeste, is because, just because the progressive part of the Democratic wing is so loud doesn't mean there's not centrists out there. There's plenty of people that are still center, when it comes to Democrats. I like to call them the Kennedy Democrats.
Mhm.
There's still plenty of
Okay.
Kennedy Democrats out there, who's making the call and going, hey,
Very few though. I have.
yeah, yeah, what's going on? But don't get me wrong, I agree with Celeste when she says those progressives, they're not calling at all.
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, they're cheering it on. All right, they're at home, they're watching their MSNBC, like I said, watching the dude with the afro and preach his nonsense, and everybody's up there just cheering them on. And there's plenty of that, but that's what's so wrong about the Democratic Party right now. Amongst the actual politicians, they all walk in lockstep. But when it comes to their actual constituents, they're split. They're
Mm,
split
Mhm.
down the middle.
Mhm.
mm.
You have some over here, you got your Fettermans over here, you got your AOC constituents over here.
You're right.
It's a
You're right.
literal civil war that you're
Yeah.
seeing in the
There's the.
Democratic Party. I just got my popcorn. I want to see who win.
Hey, and who would have thought Fetterman would have been like
Right.
reasonable, right?
Yeah.
And,
Who?
and now he's mysterious. Well, he's in the hospital.
Yeah.
We better
Oh
all
yeah,
pray
yeah.
that he gets better soon and can come back to his actual, senses and be able to be the Fetterman we know him to be.
Yes.
Yes,
Exactly.
Yeah. After
But
they
it just.
adjust his defibrillator.
yes.
Yeah. There
Poor,
you.
poor
Ooh,
thing.
man.
Somebody ought to be
Yeah.
watching in the hospital.
For real.
Yes,
I
Because
know.
I heard
don't
earlier
leave
they're
him
already
alone.
wishing death on him and all of that
He
foolishness.
actually
See,
said that.
that's.
He said that people in his party were wishing he would die or that he would get killed. That's what I'm
That.
Yeah.
saying. Somebody better be standing vigil.
Hey,
I'm
but
Does
see,
saying.
that
that's.
does that really surprise you? I mean, these are the people who just voted a AG in Virginia who talking about killing kids.
True.
Yeah, that's true.
So
Yeah.
that is the party that represents that.
But
Nothing
then it's like,
surprises me with them
And
anymore.
not just kids. Let's just get the sickness right.
Mm.
That he was going to delight in watching the mother
Yes.
hold her dead
oh yeah, he did say
children
that.
and cry over their bodies. You got to be a sick
Sick
Yeah,
puppy
he gotta
Yep.
be a
to,
sick puppy.
to find any joy in that. I mean, and this is why I'm saying this hatred, this envy, and these people. Part of the reason the ones who are not calling, they don't care if they suffer. They want you to suffer. That's what they were
Hmm.
holding out for, was
Yep.
your suffering.
Man, but it's crazy though. The left, they they're okay with assassinations, but then they'll come back and say, death penalty is bad, it's evil, and then they're
I
like,
know, right?
abort the babies. You know what I mean? But then they're like, oh my gosh, it's just, I don't know. And then two, they want socialism, they want free healthcare, but then they turn around and say the government is evil, America sucks. And it's like, well, you're giving them more power, like, tell me that you're manipulated without telling me. That's right there, it's so crazy.
Irrational. It's
Man.
absolutely
You know,
irrational. You're right.
people are at their best, when you let them go out and figure it out. Let people
Yeah.
be productive. Government needs to shrink, get the hell out the way,
Mhm.
okay? And
Yep.
let men and women go out and do what they know how to do. That's when we were at our best. Okay,
Absolutely.
we don't need a
Yep.
bunch of
Absolutely.
handouts. A bunch of handouts only create entitled people. If you're not physically disabled, or if you're not elderly or disabled vet or something in that nature, there should be no subsidy, no type of EBT or anything else for you. The only thing that should be waiting for you is a job.
Yep.
Okay, go out, get a job, make it happen. Okay, and I promise, take it from me. This is a promise personally from me. It'll be okay. All right. At the end of the day, your feet gonna hurt, and things like that, but it's okay. All right. Take pride in what you do and go out and do it. Government is never the answer to anything. Government is very inefficient in everything it does.
Yes.
Okay. Just until recently, they were still running on Linux. Okay. Now, to all the old heads out there, you know what Linux is.
Mhm.
Okay. They were still operating on floppy disks out there.
Remember
Okay.
that when Elon went into that mountain for the where they were
Yeah,
archiving the retirees, and if somebody go up
exactly.
the ladder, pull it out, and breathe.
Yeah. I
Wow.
mean,
Oh
the
man.
government is so efficient, so inefficient in everything they do. You had people claiming to be 300 years old collecting Social Security.
Mhm.
Bro, I
If you
know
had,
that was
if you had the
crazy.
most, if you had the most basic, okay, computer program, could just red flag that in 2 seconds and send
Mhm.
it over. you know.
But
But they're
then they
keeping
wouldn't
their
be able to
files
vote.
in the side of a freaking mountain, like Celeste said.
Yeah, them
Hey,
300-year-old Social Security people were voting as well.
Exactly.
That's why
I'm
hey,
they were
like,
flagging them. That's their voters, okay? They don't flag them.
I'm
hey,
like, dude, how are people on Social Security who are older than the country
then the
itself?
country. I know. Oh my
I
gosh.
mean, I'm expecting to see some Indians here. You know what I'm saying? Like some wrinkled up Indians with, old feathers with dust in them. Like what is going on, bro?
Hey, and
What are we doing?
you know what's sad about that on the Doge stuff? Did you know that we were subsidizing and paying for England's paternity leave? You know how they said the man and the women can have it? Well, they found that our taxpayer
Robert,
was funding that.
Ro- Robert,
I
listen,
don't know
we
if
was
you,
paying for
but
all
that is
we was paying for
BS.
all types of stuff. Okay? We was paying for all types of stuff. We was paying for gay rabbits in Australia. Okay? Listen, this was
Yeah, and
getting
then the
ridiculous,
condoms
bro. You
and
know what I'm saying?
us.
queer goldfish in South Africa. You know what I mean? Like $3 million. It's like,
Yeah.
what
Oh
are
my
you?
god.
What are we doing?
Well, you know
You
that
know,
Hey.
that nobody ever went to see if the rabbits were gay or if the condoms were ever dispersed. We don't know that wasn't just somebody pocketing that whole thing
Washing
and
that money,
kept
man.
running.
Washing that money.
I think that's some money laundering at its
it,
finest.
it's all
Yes.
money laundering. They act like I care if some dude in Africa is circumcised. I don't. I don't. I don't want my money going there.
That's right.
It's
I know
simple,
that's
but
right.
like Celeste said, it's just a money laundering scheme, and they can't even look, if you're gonna launder money, at least get something that's feasible, you know? Like you say, okay, well, I started this restaurant and the restaurant makes $500,000 a year, something like that. But dude, really? I
Yeah,
mean,
really?
like circumcisions in Africa and gay parades in South America and Sesame Street in Iraq.
Yeah. Hey, but
Really?
and the thing is that's the efficiency of our government though. you know? Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
like
That
look,
was
they
look, dude. I, I I don't care for Sesame Street. I'm a Mister Rogers kind of guy.
there you go. Me
All right.
too. Me too.
I'm just being honest, dude. I was born and raised on PBS. You know what I'm saying?
Me
So I'm
too.
Little Engine that could. I'm Mr. Rogers. You know what I'm saying? I never cared for all the puppets and all that they got going on Sesame Street and Grouch and living in dumpsters and all that.
The Dave
You know,
Chappelle scene about the grouch, you seen that?
yeah, yeah. It's like I don't care about that, but when all that got exposed, you know, it just turned my stomach like literally over and over and over because I'm very frugal with my money. I spend money where I think it counts. I
Mhm.
spend money on my house or I spend money on doing certain things, but dude, the way these people spend money, they have no regard for how hard people work to get this money, to pay
Yeah.
into this system, for them to turn around and just throw it all away. Not even throw it away because they're laundering it, but you kind of get what I'm saying. They're
Yeah.
literally stealing our money. My dad used to tell me growing up, uh, uh, this how politics will work. Okay, out of every $3 in tax money, the people got two reinvested into the community, and the politicians stole one. Okay, so it would be two coming back, one going to the politician. But now it's to the point, dude, where the politicians taking $4,
Mm.
and
on
we're
every
negative
three.
$1.
Mhm.
Yeah, and we're negative $1 every three.
Yes,
That's how you
yes.
get
With
36
the debt.
trillion
Yes,
in debt.
yes, yes. That is
Because
exactly right.
yeah, because Joe Pesci has a line in Casino where the guy is skimming out the count room. Okay. And the count room, for people who don't know casino lingo, the count room is the godly room in the casino. That's where all the money is held. Okay. And there
Yeah.
was a guy who would walk in there with a briefcase and would load the briefcase with money, okay, and walk out. That was called the skim. Okay. But the biggest problem with the skim was that the guys working in the count room who allowed this man to come in with his suitcase and take all the money were also stealing. Okay. And Joe Pesci said it. He said the guys were all slipped in there to help skim the place dry. But the problem is that the guys helping you steal are going to steal a little extra for themselves. And that's what you're seeing with these politicians. Okay.
Mm.
They help each other steal, but then what they're stealing is not enough, so they steal a little more. And that's how all thieves get caught, because they're never happy with what they initially took.
Mhm.
Okay, they're gonna come back to the honey hole time and time and time again until the honey hole runs dry or they get caught. And in this case, they got caught with their hand in the honey, and exposed. So there you
And
go.
yeah, these politicians, they're corrupt. This is why they were crying so hard. And in fact, when Elon, I think he really quit because he had death threats. He
Mm-hmm.
even said it in Joe Rogan, his podcast. He said, "I don't want to go too deep in the corruption." And then Joe Rogan, well, he finally goes, "Yo, I found a lot of corruption, like real corruption, like real." And he goes, "How real?" He goes, "Let's just say it's just real, okay." And he goes, "I was contemplating whether to tell this on the plane, whether I should talk about this on your show, but man,
He said, if I
I don't
ever
want to
really
die."
told
He
you what
literally
they
said
are
that,
doing with the
and
money,
he quit.
he said, if I ever really told you
Yep.
what they're doing with the money, they
Yeah,
would
he
kill
did.
me. He said that on that show. So we still don't know. What we know is not what's really going on. He said, if I ever really said what's really going on with this money, they would kill me. And he
Yeah,
left.
because when you look at red states, Celeste, I'll give you an example here in Florida. Okay, if you come down to Florida, Florida has no state tax.
Mhm.
Okay. We have a pretty high sales tax, but that's fine. I can live with that. But no state tax, and currently our governor is working on no property tax. He said he has to save about 10% of what the budget
Dude.
is in Florida. So he has to cut about 10% of what the budget is in Florida to be able to eliminate property tax. Okay. This is what we need our governors and our politicians to be doing. Exactly what our governor here is doing.
Yes.
Finding a way to make the state more efficient with the money that it does have.
Mhm.
Okay. And once you can do that, you can start looking at doing extra things like eliminating a property tax, to give your residents real relief. And then,
Yes.
these northern blue states, what do they argue when they argue for high taxes? They always argue infrastructure. They always argue we need better roads, we need better this, we need better public transportation. But if you come down to Florida and you just look at Florida's architecture, go down to Miami. We have major cities all through Florida. Go to Miami, go to Tampa, come to Orlando, go to Jacksonville. There's major bridges, beautiful roads, you know. All our bridges are maintained, they're not run down, anything like that.
And your
Okay.
school system is good.
And our school system is one of the best in the country.
And
And
that's
how we allowed to be able to do all this, you know, with the tax structure that we currently have. That's
mhm.
why I don't buy into anything these blue states say, because if Florida can do it, every other state should be able to do it as well. Simple.
And
Yeah.
Florida has a huge amount of retirees. So not only is
Exactly.
yeah, so it's not even necessarily the most productive population in terms of putting into the workforce at the moment. That you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Well, and
If Florida
the
can
thing
do it,
is,
everybody else can do it.
well, here's the thing too, that this is why I think New York's whatever happens there is going to also affect Florida, because there's a lot of people that own properties in New York, left New York to live in retirement in Florida. They're collecting rent in New York. And if Mandani does all this stuff, they're going to have to sell their property, and some of them are going to hold on to as long as they can, because for whatever reason they are not able to sell it because of tenant issues. I don't know. And that's what's
Yep.
so scary about what's going to happen to New York.
Mm.
And it's sad reality, and I think no one's really talking about that. But I think, and I haven't even looked into numbers, but now I'm curious. So after the show is done, I'm gonna look that up and see how many people that owned property in New York that live in Florida. Now that's bringing me a
Oh no,
curiosity right there.
you just asked me because I
Um,
go from house to house basically selling jobs. And I'll give you an example. Today, the gentleman that I'm doing the job for tomorrow is from Boston.
mhm.
Mhm.
Oh
you
wow.
know, and you can tell by the accents. And anytime you meet these people, they're either from Boston or that tri-state area up there, you know, Jersey, New York,
Yeah.
Massachusetts, these type of places, and they all come down to Florida. They either own a second property here, you know, or they own some type of business here, and they come down maybe 6 months out of the year, or you know, they end up moving here full time. But they're all over the place. They're all over the place,
Yeah, that's true.
especially when you're getting down to the coast, Daytona, straight on down the coast, Ormond Beach. That's where I was today. There's a lot of old money in Ormond Beach, Sarasota, Jacksonville. You know, when I say old money, these are people who are in their golden years. You know, they've made good money in their life, they own their property, you know, and now in their golden years, they look to, you know, do repairs, things like that. And when hurricanes and stuff happen here, dude, if you're a construction worker in Florida after a hurricane, it's raining money. You ever seen that meme of that plumber with all the gold chains? That's what construction workers look
Yeah.
like after the hurricane. Okay. I literally
Man.
have, dude, 50 to 100 messages in my phone of people who are just like, hey man, I need you to stop by. And I have 3, 4 weeks booked solid every day. I'm working 7 days a week. Okay. But at the end, like I told you last night, I'm sitting at Ruth Chris by myself, having me a nice little porterhouse, you know, a side of some asparagus. I'm a Puerto Rican. I ain't never ate asparagus in my life, but I'm finna eat some tonight. You know what I mean? It's that kind of stuff. So, you know, for the people out there, and we kind of hate to jump from subject to subject, but this is really important, you know, for the guys coming up, these young guys. Hey man, if you're smart enough to go to college, because a school teacher told me, he said the classroom, if it has 30 kids, you usually have five that's really smart, five that's really dumb, and the rest are in the middle.
Mhm.
Okay. So if you happen to be one of the really smart ones, then I encourage you to go to college, you know, and further your education. But if you are one of the 20 and you know you're one of the 20, that doesn't mean, dude, that you don't have a shot to be successful in life. Okay. Most millionaires in this
Amen.
country are high school graduates.
They're from the middle, yes.
Yes.
Yep.
That middle
So
school.
there there's plenty of opportunity. You can make something happen. You don't need to get $200,000 in debt. Okay. Go out, find an old head like myself, all right, and learn something. Learn a trade. We don't mind teaching you as long as you're not like that turnover guy. You know, hey, I'm gonna do this for 3 months, waste your time, and then I'm gonna go flip burgers over here. You know, commit. A guy will teach you. By the time you're 30, you're getting into your mid 30s, you'll be making good money. Okay. Enough to support you, wife, maybe a couple kids. Okay, that's really the route you want to go with no student debt. You have a trade, you know, and you start off life right. You know, debt will drag you into just a pit of stupidity. You do not want to take out a loan from Uncle Sam because Uncle Sam does not play. And if you took 100 grand from him, he's not going to stop till you get that 100 grand. Okay. The only time that debt is canceled is when your casket drops. Outside of that, ask anybody who has a student loan. These people do not play. And if I'm correct, and Celeste could tell me this, is it a compound interest, Celeste, on these student loans?
It's not necessarily a compound interest, but it's non-refinanceable, it's non-dischargeable. And so there is no, once you're in it, there's no way out of the student loan. It is actually, it's the only
Oh
debt
man.
of its kind, really. Once you get in a student loan, you can't get any other loan. There's something you can do about it. You can try and refinance the terms. You can try and discharge the debt. You can do all of that. You cannot do that with student loan. And that's
No,
what,
so you're pretty much screwed.
It's a
yes, which
trap.
is why You should only take something like
It's
that
a
if
trap.
you know for sure. If you're going to be a brain surgeon, go ahead and take your student loan. But
Yeah.
if you're gonna go study something just because you have a curiosity and an interest in it, and it may or may not pay, but it's what your heart desires, pay cash for that and see how much you really desire this. When I always said, and I wrote about this in my book, but I always said that if I had kids, I would save money for them for that time in their life. I would not pay for them to go to school. I will give you money for a business. If you really love school that much, you pay yourself, and we'll find out if you love it.
Well, I'm terrified in sending my kids to college. I send Carl off to college. He come back as Carla. I'll be like, man, this is just ridiculous, bro.
Man.
This is not what I signed up
Oh,
for right here.
Now you sound like Snoop.
I know.
Yeah,
But
but
you know, you guys are you guys are touching in a very good spot where I want to end the show. Um, where you guys are giving advice to the youth and to the future viewers. And I think that's a perfect thing to start this by. And Rolando, you already gave your piece. Celise, what would you what would you advise for someone that's going to run across this video? What would you give them advice now that you know what you know?
Well, if they were a young man, I would tell them to listen to Rolando and say that the smartest way, when you're starting out and you don't have money, if you want to make an exchange, is always free labor. Free labor is a perfectly good thing to do, to eventually attain knowledge, which can give you wealth. So if you see somebody painting a house, go up there and ask them, if you show me how to paint, I'll come every day. Just, you can always do that. Someone will always work with you if you want to give them free labor. If you're a woman, I would tell them, if you're a young woman, you need to determine early, very early in your life, if you want to be married
mhm.
and have kids, because if you do, you need to make that a priority extremely early in your life. And you need to get with an older woman. Unfortunately, there'll be very few who can help you, but you'd have to get with an older woman where you could seek some advice and some guidance. But if you know you want to have children and you want to be married, you have to do that and really make that a priority for yourself early. You cannot go thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, make all of this investment in yourself, and live this very kind of independent life, which is also an investment in yourself, and then turn around at 37, 38, or whatever and say, I want to be married. It's going to be extremely difficult.
Wow. Okay.
I agree.
Dion,
I agree with
what would you
Celeste
like to
100%.
tell the youth? Me too.
Well, I would say much the same thing that Rolando and Celeste have said. I mean, you hear it being spoken about about how AI is going to be overtaking so many jobs in the very near future, and so the jobs that require that you have to be there in person, those are the ones that are going to have that staying power. So your jobs that you have to go to trade school to learn, and those trade schools used to be all over the place now. So I'm expecting that eventually there's going to be a boom in those again,
Yeah.
because that labor force, that workforce is just not there, and it's going to have to be rebuild. And what Celeste just said about the ladies, I mean, it is so true. I went the wrong route, um, because when I was a young lady, I did not know what Celeste said. And so I did all this investing in myself and my education, and I went to college, and it was long enough ago that I didn't have to worry about the whole indoctrination that's going on now, with so many young people being indoctrinated into this wokeism. So I didn't have that. The feminism part was still there. So I felt like, well, let me go to school and get an education so I have something to fall back on just in case or whatever. But I put I guess a lot of emphasis on that, and then by the time I looked around, after I finished my degrees, because I have two of them, one being graduate, and I'm like, wow, I mean, I missed out on some things when a lot of my friends, they were dating and stuff like that. I had my head in the school book learning. I mean, I enjoyed it, but I should have done what Celeste just mentioned. I should have made that a priority. I didn't necessarily know how to. My mom didn't know how to, I guess, teach me that, because it was kind of a thing. They were just in that era
Mhm.
where things just flowed that way. There wasn't all this mindset of, for instance, of young men feeling like, well, let me just play around out here, play the field as long as I
Right,
can, and not worry
right.
about getting married. There's so much playing in the background as to why a lot of that happened. The boom with the pornography and all of that playing in the background. It used to be that, you had to go to the store and buy those materials. But then when it came to a point that you can just pick up your handy dandy computer and access, that changed the mindset of a lot of men, unfortunately.
You are
Um,
you're very right.
and it's so sad.
Can I
But
say one thing
sure.
about you? And it's not that I'm saying that um people should be that women should be discouraged from that. What I'm saying is women should not be denied the choice at a time in their life when they can actually make it.
Hmm.
Well, and that comes the question with this now, because what you just said, yes, the choice, if you want to, but when you're young, do you really know what you want? And the question goes, if you haven't been married and you pursued your career, are you happier now than you would have been if you had a family and kids as a woman? And
Well,
I'm just asking.
so I'm gonna do Rolando's math, which I think probably works. 5% of people have an exceptional desire to do something extraordinary, innovative, entrepreneurial, whatever. 5% of the people probably want to do nothing. But the most women who are just in the middle probably will regret not getting married and not having children, because that is part of our design to want
Yes.
that. So
Yes.
most women
Mhm.
will want that. Not every single, there'll always be a few on one side or the other
Hmm.
that didn't want it for whatever their reasons may be. But most women will. And
Well,
most women, if they, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go
no,
ahead,
I was just
Rolando.
gonna say, Celeste, that women live in community. That's
Yes.
where women live. That's where they thrive. And when they're young and they're surrounded by their friends and things like that, they're very influential. And they make them feel empowered. That this feeling is going to last forever. The feeling of friendship and this and that. But the problem with that is that that feeling doesn't last. It's a
Mm.
it's a fleeing kind of thing, you know,
I don't know if
because
I
what
think that's
lasts,
true.
what I mean by that, Celeste, is at the moment, you're surrounded by all your friends and they're amping you up. Yeah, girl power, this, that, and everything else, and that may feel great at the time and it feels very
Hmm.
empowering at the
Hmm.
time, but it's a feeling that's fading, that's fleeing. And the reason I say that is because what women really cherish when they get older is their family, you know,
True.
their little girl, their little boy. That's why I say women live in community, and I always go back to this. We're fighting our nature,
True.
and a
So
woman's
true.
nature is to be the centerpiece of the family. The man a lot of people say the man is the centerpiece, but I don't agree with that. I believe that the
Yeah.
woman is the centerpiece.
Yeah.
She is the glue that keeps everything together. Now, the man may be the leader and everybody follows his lead, you know, but when it comes down to it, the mother is the most important person in the house. Okay. She
Yeah.
teaches all the
I agree
she
with that.
teaches the discipline early on. She sets the example, you know. Um, everyone in that house would kill for her, just to be honest, you know.
Yep.
Um,
That's true.
the husband, the son, it doesn't matter. She is the most important, you know. And when you when you're looking to settle down, have a family, what Celeste says is absolutely correct. And young women need to listen to her and what she's trying to preach to y'all. Okay, because it is the truth. All right. I believe when a woman's about 22, 23, is about when she should get married. And you should marry a man who's about 30, 32. Okay. And the reason I say that age difference is because you have to give men a head start in life, okay, to get experience
Because
up
we
under
mature
their belt.
slow.
Well, no, it's not so much that, but I do agree with that. But it's not so much that. It's more that men have to get out there and establish themselves financially,
Mhm.
okay? Because you're going to
That's true.
carry a lot when you get your wife and your kids and that kind of stuff. And you have to get about a 10, 12 year head start where you can get that experience in whatever field it is. Okay, so you can start making good money. Because you might start off somewhere making the minimum 42,000 a year, but you give yourself 12 years, you might make 60, 70, and that's better for supporting the family. You know, the woman can raise her kids, through all the younger years. Okay, but when the kids start getting into those teenage years, 13, 14, you don't have to be around as much. So now if the woman wants to explore having a career or starting a business or doing something like that, she can feel free to do that. But her years need to be invested in those children because that's where she's going to get most of her satisfaction from. Okay. It's a deal where you receive and you give. Okay. You get the satisfaction of being a mother. You get all that comes with that. And the kid gets the benefit of being raised by a mother that's instilling values in him
And
when,
Yep.
society benefits too. But
yes,
Robert, we
exactly.
got to do another show just on this. We will never end if we could.
I
This
know
is
exactly.
something
I know.
we could
It's
say.
it's
You ain't lying.
it's
You ain't
a
lying.
and we'll close off with this, but the advice that you just guys give is awesome. Next Thursday I would like to have the same we can discuss this, but I'm gonna add a person, and I his name is Adam Francisco. He's a he goes to these events and trolls these liberals. He's a guy that's always asking them questions and stuff like that, debates them, and just to bring them along and hear this perspective about youth and stuff. And if y'all get a chance, look him up, Adam Francisco. But with that being said, thank you guys for joining us here at the X-Ray Podcast. We kind of fell off a little bit because we took some time off and break, but we're Julio's getting I think he's going through something, and as soon as we reach that hump, we're gonna be back at it again. But everybody, thank you, Celise, Rolando, Dion, thank you guys, and
Thank
I'm
you.
All
gonna be
Thanks for
there
right.
every
having us.
Wednesday with you guys. Yep.
Hey, let me tell Julio this, okay? Julio, tú necesitas estar aquí la próxima semana, que yo voy a estar aquí también, ¿ok? Te estoy esperando,
Oh,
hermano.
there you go, man.
There you go, Celeste, a little
Busted out with
Spanish
that
for you. There you go.
Boricua Spanish right there.
Yeah, I'm telling
Oh
you.
man.
Tell a friend. Tell a friend. Tell a friend. I'm single. I'm out here.
All right, guys. Well, thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you for being here. And with that, I'm gonna let y'all go.
All right.
All
Thank you.
right.
See
Talk
Good
to
ya.
night,
y'all
everyone.
later. All right.